Kanto region, Vermilion City. The sharp blast of a ship's horn echoed across the harbor as a massive cruise liner slowly pulled away from the dock, parting the sparkling sea. Vermilion City, Kanto's largest and busiest port, buzzed with energy. People from all corners of the world bustled through the terminal, bringing life, stories, and the unmistakable scent of salt water and adventure. Near the edge of the pier, a broad-shouldered man leaned lazily against a railing. His green camo uniform barely contained his burly frame, and the sun caught the sheen of his cropped blonde hair. He looked every bit the soldier he once was, sharp, dangerous, unflinching. TSSSSK. A can of beer hissed open in his grip. He raised it to his lips, took a slow sip, and stared out at the open ocean with the calm of a man used to chaos. Then, whoosh, a glint of something flew toward him from the shadows. The man didn't flinch. With lightning reflexes, he snatched the object midair. In his palm lay a badge, a bright pink one, shaped like a lotus. The Fuchsia Gym's signature. Lieutenant Serge let out a low chuckle, twirling the badge on his fingertips. Ding! He flicked it into the air and caught it again with practiced ease. Well, he muttered, eyes flicking toward the alley across the street. From the darkness emerged a man dressed in deep black ninja garb, his every movement silent and precise. His sharp eyes gleamed beneath the mask. Koga, Serge said with a smirk, raising his can in a mock toast. Didn't expect to see you crawling out of the shadows. Taking a vacation? Koga's voice was low and smooth, like a blade being drawn. I have business in Jado, but before I go, I need you to take care of something. Must be important if it's dragging you out here. Serge downed the rest of his beer. You look relaxed, Koga observed, tone unreadable. When the boss shuts down operations, I've got nothing but time, Serge replied. Right now I'm babysitting trainers for some dumb TV project. Boring as hell. Koga's stare sharpened. You question the boss's orders? Serge's expression hardened instantly. I follow orders. Always. He studied the badge in his hand again. But I am curious. Who's worth all this effort? Koga gave a single word in response. Johan. Serge frowned. That name again? Who the hell is he? You don't know. Koga's brow raised slightly. He's been making waves. Janine mentioned him. So have the forums. Serge scoffed. Forums. Right. To a battle-hardened soldier like him, league-regulated Pokémon battles were child's play. Real combat, life-and-death situations, was something else entirely. Serge didn't care for trainers with flashy tactics and fancy reputations. He's good, Koga said, already turning back into the shadows. Deliver the badge. See for yourself. Then he was gone. Serge crushed the empty can in one hand and tossed it into a nearby bin. His gaze drifted toward the coastline, eyes gleaming with interest. Let's see what this Johan guy is really made of. Vermilion beachfront. The waves shimmered under the midday sun as they lapped lazily against the shore. Kaka. Jengar shouted across the water, cupping his hands around his mouth, absolutely thrilled. Today I'm eating 10 bowls. Johan let out a long sigh. My poor wallet. Woo. Vulpix squeaked from his shoulder, pointing her tiny paw at a massive ship sailing out into the open sea. What a huge boat. Johan chuckled. That's the SS Aqua, one of the region's top luxury liners. But Tinkatuff had already spotted something even grander. Chew. She pointed at an enormous vessel docked at the pier, sleek, majestic, and shining like a jewel in the sunlight. That, Johan said, is the SS and even more extravagant. Thousands of people on board, battle tournaments, celebrity events. Tickets cost a fortune. He recalled something from the Pokemon Adventures manga. Lieutenant Serge wasn't just the gym leader here. He was also a rocket executive and captain of that very ship. Gym leaders really had it rough. Half of them had side jobs just to keep things running. The Cerulean sisters ran a water ballet show. Serge had to juggle a gym, an electric-type army, and a cruise ship full of rich tourists. Dry-eyed, Dragonair's gaze was fixed on the sea, filled with longing. Next time, Johan promised. Suddenly, a loud engine roared nearby. A rugged military jeep skidded to a stop in front of them, sending sand flying. A tan-skinned woman with short white hair and a pink headband stood on the hood like a hero from an action movie. Her toned physique radiated strength. "Johan," she bellowed. Everyone froze. "I'm Biscay, Lieutenant Serge's deputy." Johan blinked. Oh, right. He had heard of her. Serge's second-in-command. Former soldier. Gym sub-leader. Ranked 2109 in the World Coronation Series. Not bad, but definitely not elite. "Pleasure," Johan said politely. "Serge sent me to get you," she said, hopping into the driver's seat. Johan climbed aboard. He was finally going to meet the infamous Electric Army and choose a Piku for the show. As the Jeep took off, Biscay glanced at him through the rearview mirror. Handsome guy, she thought, but hugging a Vulpix? What a softie. Her judgment didn't last long. A sudden shadow loomed in the passenger seat. It was Jengar, flashing a wide grin. "Did you just call my trainer a pretty boy?" Biscay jerked the wheel in surprise. "What the?" Jengar casually pointed at the steering wheel. "Kaka, can I drive?" Moments later, Johan noticed the silence. "Wait, Jengar, what are you?" Too late. Biscay had fainted in her seat, the Jeep's horn blaring as her head hit the wheel. Johan groaned. "You're Serge's vice captain, and you fainted from that?" Jengar put on sunglasses and grabbed the wheel with dramatic flair. "Kaka, Jengar's road trip begins. You don't even know where the gym is, do you?" Jengar paused, looking guilty. "Touché. Vermilion Gym." The rhythmic pounding of boots echoed through the yard as Lieutenant Serge led a dozen trainees on a morning jog around the facility. "Sir," one of them pointed down the road. Biscay's Jeep. Serge glanced at his watch. "She's 2 hours late." He scowled. The trainees were running laps just to kill time. Then the Jeep appeared, speeding right past the gym. It screeched to a halt several meters later and reversed awkwardly. The door swung open. Johan stepped out, looking sheepish. She's just sleeping," he offered weakly. Lieutenant Serge cracked his knuckles, an ominous grin forming. "Well now, looks like we're going to have to settle this." As expected, Johan wore a look that screamed, "I knew this was coming." The moment he left for Vermilion City to meet Lieutenant Serge, he'd already predicted the outcome. Some situations were just inevitable. So when Serge challenged him, Johan didn't flinch. 3 badges down, a 4th up for grabs. Whatever happened next, he let fate decide. If he managed to collect all 8, then sure, entering the league conference might not be such a bad idea. Jengar and the others hadn't experienced a full-scale league tournament before, after all. Still, Johan knew who he was up against. Lieutenant Serge, war hero, rocket executive, and one of the league's most unpredictable gym leaders. Along with Koga and Sabrina, he'd been one of Team Rocket's 3 top dogs. But unlike the others, Serge had turned over a new leaf after the Rocket disbandment, even stepping in to help Red and his allies during several major crises. At first glance, he came off as a brute, tall, rough, temperamental, built like a walking tank. But Johan knew better. You don't rise to the rank of major in any military, let alone the Kanto army, by being all brawn and no brain. His stats on paper might not have been the most impressive among the former Rocket trio, but that just made one thing clear. Serge had earned his rank through cunning, not just raw strength. This was a man who thrived in real combat, fights where rules didn't matter and survival was the only win condition. Johan remembered the story. How Serge once forced Red into a desperate position. The famous insulated gloves Red used to beat Giovanni? They'd originally belonged to Serge. And then there was the time he made Reiku charge a maglev train just to power it up. Reiku. Zapdos. The man had wielded both a legendary beast and a legendary bird. This wasn't someone to underestimate. And now, Johan stood across from him on the battlefield, unshaken. "If it's a battle you want," he said with a faint smile, "then I'd be honored, Lieutenant Serge." Serge raised an eyebrow. He hadn't expected the kid to accept so smoothly. Something about Johan's calm demeanor made the big man pause. This wasn't just some dainty guy with a cute Vulpix anymore. Serge smirked, folding his arms across his chest. "In that case, let's make this an unrestricted battle." Johan blinked, then nodded with understanding. Of course Serge would say that. "Kaka, Jengar tilted his head. Unrestricted? Never heard of that one. A stocky man with a sausage-like nose. Tony stepped forward to explain. It's like an old-school street fight. Real wild stuff. Trainers fight alongside their Pokémon on the field. You can swap your team in or out anytime. First to knock out the opponent's Pokémon wins. Johan nodded again. No attacks on trainers, but battlefield hazards and collateral damage are allowed. Tony looked surprised. Didn't expect a pretty boy to know his history, he muttered. Unrestricted battles were a lost art. Frowned upon in modern tournaments, but legendary among veteran trainers. Most notably, Red's final fight with Giovanni had followed these rules. These battles weren't for the textbook warriors. They were built for survivalists, trainers who lived and fought in the real world, not the classroom. Jengar's eyes lit up. So that's why those old battle vids were so chaotic. Serge chuckled. If you already know the rules, no need to waste time. He cracked his neck. Let's start. The energy shifted. Gym staff, trainers, and spectators began to gather. Even Viscay, half awake and still groggy, trudged out to watch. The Vermilion Gym arena. Both Serge and Johan placed 3 Pokeballs each onto a central pedestal. The locking mechanism engaged, preventing any early releases. Tony stood by with 2 flags. The first phase, he announced, is a race to the Pokeballs. Go! Serge exploded off the starting line like a bullet. Johan sprinted too, but he was no match for the veteran's military-honed speed. In seconds, Serge was at the pedestal. He snatched his first Pokeball, then with a flick of his wrist, hurled a small throwing knife toward Johan's set. Clang! One of Johan's Pokeballs was knocked aside. Go, Magneton! Serge roared. The magnetic trio emerged with a flash of light. Discharge! Blanket the field. Electricity crackled everywhere, arcs of lightning jumping from metal beams to the floor. But Johan had stopped mid-sprint. What's he doing? The knocked-aside Pokeball on his side suddenly clicked open, on its own. Kaka! Jengar emerged, grinning wickedly, a massive shadow ball already forming above his head. Tony gasped. How did that ball even unlock? And that shadow ball, it's huge. Simple. Jengar had been charging it in his mouth the whole time, like a snack he was saving for later. Fire, Johan said calmly. The colossal sphere rocketed forward. Magneton counter, Serge barked. The blast lit up the arena in a shockwave of shadow and lightning. When the dust settled, Magneton was still standing, but barely. Serge grit his teeth. This kid isn't normal. He reached for another Pokeball. Kaka. Jengar grinned and swallowed all of them. Every Pokeball, his teammates too, gone in one gulp. The audience gasped. Can he even do that? Johan calmly recalled Jengar. Then he tossed out his next choice. Vulpix. Snow warning. The temperature in the gym plummeted. Frost coated the floor. A cold mist spread over the battlefield. Magneton flash. Serge yelled. A blinding light burst forth. Johan winced and shielded his eyes. And Serge charged. Fist raised. Eyes locked on Johan. If I can't win with Pokemon, I'll just knock him out myself. But Johan didn't need to see. He sidestepped effortlessly, eyes still closed. What? Then came his counterpunch, an aura-guided strike that slammed squarely into Serge's jaw. The crowd gasped. Did Johan just punch Lieutenant Serge first? The giant man stumbled back, holding his chin. Damn it, that actually hurt. Magneton, recovering, went for Euro Ball, only for Vulpix to vanish in a flash of red light. Johan had already swapped her out. Tinkatuff landed with a thud, raised her hammer, and brought it crashing down with brick break. Crunch! Magneton's magnets went flying. Magneton is unable to battle. Tony called, still stunned. The winner is Johan. Silence. Then murmurs. Then cheers. Serge stood still, rubbing his bruised jaw, then looked at Johan with something new in his eyes. Respect. Congratulations, kid. You beat me fair and square.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoy my quantum audiobooks, you can support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. You can also access my audiobooks directly through Google Drive. Check out the link in the description. Now, let's get started.
Lieutenant Serge admired trainers with guts, those who stood tall and faced challenges head-on. Even though Johan's tactics in their recent unrestricted battle bordered on absurd, the essence of unrestricted battles was just that, no holds barred. Apart from a few basic restrictions, it was all about winning, means and methods be damned. After all, in the wild, or during life-and-death skirmishes with enemies, would anyone care about what's fair or ethical? Thus, Lieutenant Serge accepted his loss graciously. He personally handed Johan the Thunder Badge from Vermilion Gym. This is the Thunder Badge. Congratulations. The badge, crafted from what looked like a unique gemstone, sparkled like the sun, a clear indication it wasn't cheap. Johan didn't hesitate. Taking the badge, he replied, "Thank you." Then, Serge retrieved a technical machine, TM. This is for the move Thunderbolt. However, before he could finish, Johan interjected. "Could you swap it for another?" Lieutenant Serge blinked in surprise. Nearby, Tony and Bisque stepped back, their eyes wide in shock. It was the first time they'd seen anyone dare to talk to Lieutenant Serge like that. Their instinct screamed, "Serge is going to punch him." To their amazement, Lieutenant Serge didn't get angry. After a brief moment of confusion, he laughed heartily and pulled out several more TMs. "Well then, I got Thunder Wave, Charge Beam, Volt Switch, and Thunder. Take your pick." Johan smiled. Thunder sounds good. Among those choices, Thunder was the priciest and most powerful move, both in terms of damage potential and difficulty to acquire. Fine by me. Without hesitation, Serge handed over the TM for Thunder. Tony and Bisque exchanged bewildered glances. When did Serge become this easygoing? After taking the TM, Johan glanced at Gengar, who grinned mischievously. Stretching his hands into the dimensional space of his stomach, Gengar pulled out 2 Pokeballs. He then smacked his head as if to say, "Oops, I forgot." Caca. Returning the Pokeballs containing Raichu and Electabuzz, Gengar grinned sheepishly. Tony and Bisque. Was Serge threatened? If so, why didn't he signal us? Serge, however, simply laughed, his earlier demeanor replaced with a newfound camaraderie. It almost felt like he was about to declare Johan his brother-in-arms. "Oh, right. I almost forgot. This is for you from Koga." Serge handed over a pink badge. "A badge from Fuchsia Gym?" Johan blinked in surprise. Gengar wasted no time, snatching the badge from Serge's hand and comparing it to the Thunder Badge. The mischievous ghost counted on his fingers. 2 new badges added to 3 prior ones. Caca. 5 badges in total now. Gengar grinned as he stared at his 5 fingers. Perfect, just enough fingers to count. Johan frowned slightly. Is this okay? Getting a badge without a battle felt a bit unearned, like he was imitating Faulkner. Serge waved dismissively. Koga said his coughing got drained once already and took half a month to recover. Johan. Besides, Serge added, Koga's on a mission, and Fuchsia Gym is currently run by Janine. If you go, she'd probably just hand you the badge anyway. Johan sighed, rubbing his forehead. This was starting to make him feel like a bandit. I didn't come here specifically for badges. At the Vermilion Gym entrance, Serge extended an invitation to Johan, now clearly respecting him. Johan, next time let's spar hand-to-hand. Let's not. Johan's eye twitched as he quickly gestured to Bisque. Let's go. As the Jeep sped off, their next destination was a power plant, which housed numerous electric-type Pokémon. Despite its outward appearance, the plant was effectively a training ground for Serge's electric army. As they drove past the fenced area, Johan spotted Voltorb and Electrode scattered inconspicuously along the roadside and hidden in bushes. He murmured, without Serge's permission, any trespasser here would experience the art of explosions firsthand. Bisque, meanwhile, kept a wary eye on Gengar, sitting in the passenger seat beside her. She was terrified of being put to sleep again. Fortunately, this time, Gengar behaved, mostly, but just as Bisque began to relax. Bang! A loud explosion rocked the Jeep. What was that? The vehicle swerved wildly before Bisque expertly brought it to a controlled stop, narrowly avoiding a tree. Her face darkened as she stepped out to inspect. This shouldn't have happened, she muttered. The Jeep's tires were designed to handle extreme terrain, making a blowout on flat ground nearly impossible. Dry eye. Vulpix tugged Johan's sleeve, signaling him to look behind them. Closing his eyes, Johan tapped into his aura. Through the aura, the scene became clear. A mischievous Piku clung to a tree, its tiny hands covering its mouth as it snickered. Its pale yellow fur glinted in the sunlight, and its ears, shaped like diamonds, twitched excitedly. Hopping down from the tree, the Piku landed lightly on the Jeep's roof, clearly unaware it was being watched. Its beady eyes darted around as it tiptoed closer. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over it. Kaka! Jengar emerged from seemingly nowhere, pulling a grotesque face as it stuck out its tongue. The Piku froze in place for standing on end. Piku! Sigma! Scrambling backward, it tripped and landed on its tiny rear, eyes brimming with tears. Jengar scratched his head. Did I overdo it? Bisks picked up the trembling Piku, her frustration melting away at its pitiful expression. You little troublemaker. But before Johan could warn her, the Piku's eyes gleamed with mischief. Pai Siichu! Electric sparks flew from its cheeks, zapping Bisks with a jolt. Her hair frizzed out like a wire brush, her face blank with shock. The Piku took the opportunity to wiggle free, blowing a raspberry before darting into the tall grass. Johan chuckled at Bisks' stunned expression. Still think you've got it under control? Bisks shook off the static, muttering, Good thing I wore insulated gloves. Johan sighed, watching the retreating Piku. Well, that settles it. Settles what? Johan grinned. It's decided that Piku is perfect. Its playful antics and spirited personality would make it a standout for the upcoming project. Not bad at all, Johan murmured. Perfect, really. Now, he just needed a sturdy counterpart for the Piku, perhaps a Meowth resilient enough to handle its mischief. As the Jeep rolled away, Johan received a message on his phone. Who am I? You're in Kanto? Seeing Mewtwo appear online after so long, Johan raised an eyebrow in surprise. Also, how did Mewtwo know he was in Kanto? Grain in the field. Yes, I'm currently in Vermilion City. Who am I? Vermilion City, huh? Who am I? Actually, when you came to Viridian City last time, I had a faint sense of it, but I was in a state of slumber then. Slumbering, huh? Johan lightly rubbed his chin. Now that he thought about it, Mewtwo hadn't been born all that long ago. Strictly speaking, from an age perspective, Mewtwo was still a baby. Baby sleeping more was perfectly normal. Even Mew, which had existed for billions of years, was essentially still a baby. Who am I? I'd like to meet you. Johan's expression immediately stiffened. That statement carried a subtle weight, enough to send a chill down his spine. Although he trusted that Mewtwo wouldn't harm him given their current relationship, Johan couldn't help but feel nervous. The impression of Mewtwo from games and stories was too deeply ingrained. Almost every Pokédex entry described Mewtwo as a savage Pokémon with no compassion and a heart of pure violence. Of course, those were just external interpretations, not reflective of Mewtwo's actual personality. In Johan's view, their connection was more like that between a doctor and a patient. Sooner or later, meeting in person would be inevitable. Still, he believed that under his guidance, Mewtwo would now be much easier to communicate with than its counterpart from the original stories. It's just meeting Mewtwo. What's there to be afraid of? Oh, the Vulpix in Johan's arms suddenly brushed its fluffy tail against his forehead. You're sweating a lot. Johan forced a smile through gritted teeth. It's just a little hot. The Vulpix tilted its head, its icy blue eyes gleaming as it gently exhaled. Whoosh! A chill breeze, laced with snowflakes, caressed Johan's face. Caught off guard, Johan shivered violently. Thanks, I guess. The sweat on his forehead instantly turned to frost. Lips pale and teeth chattering, Johan still mustered a forced grin. Ooh. The little Vulpix shyly burrowed its head into Johan's arms, its six tails flicking playfully. So dog-like, Johan thought wryly. Grain in the field, I'm open to it. But Mewtwo's next message caught Johan off guard and even made his eyes light up. Who am I? But not yet. Who am I? According to the researchers here, my psychic powers are currently in a rapid growth phase, which has left them unstable. I need a quiet environment to recalibrate myself. Who am I? If I were to meet you now, I might unintentionally harm you. What's this? This was the very superego Johan had been guiding Mewtwo to develop. The superego is the moral component of the psyche, shaped by societal norms, ethics, and values. It serves three main functions: suppressing base impulses of the ID, monitoring and guiding the ego, striving toward higher ideals. Wanting to meet Johan was a primal desire, a reflection of Mewtwo's ID. Yet Mewtwo consciously suppressed this urge, exercising self-restraint. It was like a child craving candy, but refraining because of reasons like dental health or lack of money. Reading Mewtwo's message, Johan felt a deep sense of pride and satisfaction. Mewtwo's growing up. Still, he hadn't expected Mewtwo's psychic powers to be advancing so rapidly. Could this be a byproduct of its evolving intellect and wisdom? Grain in the field. I'm proud of you. Who am I? Grain in the field. I know you're still grappling with the meaning of your existence. But consider this. Existence precedes essence. See Note 1. Who am I? Existence precedes essence. Grain in the field. Let me simplify it. What do I mean to you? Where are we headed, Johan? Asked Bisk from the driver's seat. Where? Johan glanced at the Vulpix and Jengar. Click. One of his Pokeballs opened on its own, and Tinkatuff plopped down beside him. Chew. It pointed its hammer toward the distance. The sea. Johan chuckled. All right, let's head to the beach. Got it. Bisk kept an eye on Jengar and steered toward the coast. Mewtwo seemed to ponder Johan's earlier question for a long time before replying. Who am I? A mentor. A guide. A guardian of the heart. Johan blinked, a little taken aback by the praise. He hadn't expected Mewtwo to hold him in such high regard. Grain in the field. So before we met, I meant nothing to you, correct? Who am I think? I understand now. Grain in the field. Life's beauty lies in its infinite possibilities. Every life form interacts with others, creating something new and meaningful. Borrowing Cynthia's famous philosophy, Johan drove his point home. Who am I? Life interacting with life. Grain in the field. That's where true meaning comes from. Turning to his Pokémon, Johan couldn't help but smile. Kaka, ooh, chew, dry eye. All of them returned his smile. After all, wasn't his existence enriched because of his encounters with them? Who am I? I get it now. Johan exhaled deeply, feeling relieved. This was the first time a conversation with Mewtwo hadn't ended with it abruptly logging off. Mewtwo's growth was undeniable. At Viridian City's rocket base, Mewtwo fell asleep. It looked so peaceful. In the lab, a group of researchers exchanged whispers, treading cautiously. This is the first time Mewtwo didn't cause an explosion or blackout after using the network. According to the data, its psychic powers increase significantly every time it connects. This slumber might be its self-protective mechanism. We need to study why its abilities surge so much after these sessions. Suddenly, one researcher gasped. Wait, look at the screen. On a nearby monitor, an intense white light flickered. Is that Porygon? Another researcher, frantically typing on his keyboard, froze. The computer was no longer under his control. On screen, Porygon's blocky form was enveloped in a radiant glow. Is it evolving? When the light subsided, a new Pokémon emerged. Its rounded edges gave it a softer appearance compared to Porygon's sharp angles. Porygon 2? Lines of text began flooding the screen. Ghastly. Dream number 2. Charizard number 2. I want to meet. Supreme Destroyer. What is meaning? Meaning is meaning. Existence precedes essence. The researchers. Is Porygon 2 having mental breakdown? One of them whispered. Another sighed. Maybe life has worn down its edges. Suddenly, the server burst into flames. The researchers, oddly, none of them were angry. Instead, they felt pity. It's always Porygon that suffers. At the Vermilion City beach, Johan and his team arrived just as the sky turned to twilight. As they stepped out of the car, a fisherman called out to him. "Young man, interested in a Magikarp? They're top quality." Johan glanced at the fish tank, filled with Magikarp flopping aimlessly. The fisherman's eyes lit up when he noticed Dragonair by Johan's side. "Oh, a Dragonair. How about trading it for one of my Magikarp?" "Johan, trading a Dragonair for a Magikarp? Do I look like an idiot?" As Johan walked away, the fisherman chased after him. "Wait, these Magikarp are elite. Once they evolve into Gyarados, they'll help you punch gym leaders and kick the Elite Four." "Johan," he quickened his pace. The fisherman shouted after him, "Come back. I've got a special treasure to show you." Note 1. The phrase, "existence precedes essence," comes from Jean-Paul Sartre, a key figure in existentialist philosophy. Sartre argues that humans define their own meaning, as existence is primary, and purpose or essence follows. For storytelling purposes, this idea has been simplified here. Blastoise. How about my Blastoise? I'll trade my powerful Blastoise for your Dragonair. The precious baby mentioned by the middle-aged man was none other than the final evolution of the Kanto region starter Pokemon, Squirtle, Blastoise. Johan stopped in his tracks and turned around with an expressionless face. Dry-eyed, the Dragonair at his feet raised its head hesitantly, looking slightly uneasy. Johan's voice was a bit cold as he said, "Not interested. And if you keep pestering me, Gengar won't hold back." After saying this, he gently patted Dragonair's head to reassure it and turned to leave. "Kaka." Gengar made a face at the fishing enthusiast, its gaze clearly hostile. "Trading Pokemon? Forget offering a Blastoise. Even if it were a Lugia, Johan wouldn't hesitate to refuse." "I'm getting increasingly annoyed with the idea of trading Pokemon," Johan muttered, eliciting a collective nod of agreement from his Pokemon. In the Pokemon world, trading Pokemon wasn't uncommon and was considered a fairly normal practice. Some people treated Pokemon as toys and found it natural to swap them out when bored. Others were passionate about battles and used trading to fill gaps in their team. A smaller group sought to find a more suitable trainer for their Pokemon to help them grow, resulting in trades for the Pokemon's betterment. For example, in the original story, Ash and Dawn traded their Aipom and Bizel because Aipom preferred contests and suited Dawn better, while Bizel loved battling and was better off with Ash. However, even in these cases, the Pokemon's own opinions were sought first. From Johan's perspective, if a Pokemon liked battling, nurture it for battles. If it enjoyed contests, train it for that. If it liked neither, let it do what it wants. Isn't it a trainer's responsibility to cater to their Pokemon's preferences and talents? If you're not capable, don't catch them recklessly. If you do, you must take responsibility. Anyway, let's not dwell on this. What do you guys feel like eating? How about grilled eel over rice? Johan asked with a smile. His Pokemon cheered enthusiastically. After wandering around and buying a variety of snacks and treats, Johan felt a bit tired. He found a relatively quiet beach, spread out a picnic blanket, and laid out all the food he'd bought, along with Moo milk, berries, and Poke blocks he always carried with him. Now it's Kaka, picnic time. After dinner, his Pokemon began playing on the beach. The Vulpix and Tinkatuff built sandcastles together. Gengar, on the other hand, had somehow procured a pair of goggles. After putting them on, it stood by the shore, taking deep breaths with exaggerated gusto before leaping into the water with a splash. The kids nearby burst into laughter. Johan looked at Dragonair, who was still by his side. "You're not going to join them?" Dry-eye. Dragonair whimpered softly, looking a little lost in thought. Johan sighed softly, realizing that the fisherman's earlier words might have affected the little Pokemon. As he gently stroked Dragonair's head, he said quietly, "Why don't you talk to me about it?" Dragonair's round, shiny eyes gazed deeply at Johan before shaking its head and muttering softly. Dry-eye, dry-eye. It wasn't sure how to express itself. It just felt like it was the weakest and least useful among Johan's 4 Pokemon, and lately, it had even put on some weight. Johan chuckled. Pulling Dragonair into his arms, he whispered into its ear, "Do you know why that annoying man only wanted to trade for you, and not for Gengar or the others?" Dry-eye. Dragonair blinked in confusion. Johan smiled warmly and whispered, half-jokingly, because you're the one with the most potential. That annoying man has a good eye for spotting the best, my Dragonair. Dragonair looked skeptical. Johan laughed heartily. Okay, all of you have great potential. But I wasn't lying. His judgment was accurate. He then muttered, as if to himself, I'm just worried that when my Dragonair grows up, it won't want to stick around with a weak trainer like me. Never. Dragonair suddenly coiled tightly around Johan. Ha ha ha. Johan laughed again, patting the little one on the head. All right, I was just joking. Dragonair looked up, its eyes filled with determination. It only wanted to stay with Johan forever, always and always. In the distance, the lights of Vermilion City shone brightly, casting their glow onto the beach. The waves, crashing rhythmically, left white foam on the shore. At that moment, even the sea breeze seemed to soften. Buzz. Suddenly, to Johan's surprise, Dragonair's body began to emit a dazzling white light, attracting the attention of others on the beach. A little girl holding a pinwheel tugged on her mother's sleeve, her voice innocent and sweet. Mommy, look, that big brother is evolving. Because Dragonair was wrapped around Johan, the evolving glow enveloped him as well. The Vulpix, Tinkatuff, and Jengar all noticed the commotion and rushed over. Choo-choo, did Johan evolve? Tinkatuff's eyes widened in disbelief. Jengar snickered mischievously. Ka-ka, yeah, he evolved. Up next, we got Johanmon. Johanmon, my foot. Johan's annoyed voice came from within the glowing light, earning hearty laughter from his Pokémon. So bright. The other trainers on the beach were equally astonished. They'd seen Pokémon evolve before, but this glow was far too intense. Half the beach was lit up, and those closer felt as though it were daytime. When a trainer gives their all, a Pokémon responds in kind. Perhaps this is the benefit of bonds forged through encounters, trust, and inseparable companionship between humans and Pokémon. Of course, part of it was due to the deep energy Dragonair had accumulated. In the radiant glow, Johan closed his eyes. Through his aura, he could feel the surging power within Dragonair's body. Some of it was accumulated before Johan caught it, but much of it was gained after joining him. From the top-tier Pokeblocks to the Dragonite scale to Johan's daily care and training. Suddenly, Johan had a thought that made his expression change. Oh no, with Dragonair's unusual blend of luck and misfortune, could something go wrong now? But it seemed he was overthinking. Dragonair never faltered in critical moments. No, now it should be called Dragonair. Dra. As the glow faded, an ethereal, melodious cry echoed through the air. And there it was, a sleek, elegant Pokémon covered in sapphire-like scales, with a small horn on its forehead and feathery wings on either side of its head. Around its neck and tail were 3 crystal-like orbs. The moonlight fell gently on its body. Its wings fluttered slightly, growing larger with each movement. With graceful rhythmic motions, it began to fly. Dragon Pokémon Dragonair, the evolved form of Dragonair. Choo-choo, Tinkatuff gawked. Flying, it's flying. It seemed like Dragonair was one step closer to being a Dragonite. I think its body length is almost 6 meters, Johan muttered. Ordinary Dragonair were about 4 meters long, but his Dragonair seemed to have reached nearly 6 meters. But what truly surprised him was its ability to fly right after evolving. Whether Dragonair could fly had always been a topic of debate. Some said Dragonair couldn't fly because it had no wings. The tiny ones didn't count. Others claimed to have seen Dragonair soaring through the skies, even manipulating the weather. But Johan knew that Dragonair's ability to fly depended on one move, Dragon Dance. In the anime, there was a place called Dragonite Paradise on a vast ocean where many Dragonite, Dragonair, and Dragonair lived. Some of the Dragonair there could fly because they had Master Dragon Dance. The fact that his Dragonair could fly immediately after evolving proved it had learned the move. The Dragonair entry in Johan's Pokédex confirmed this as well. I wish I could send a photo to Cynthia's Garchomp, Johan muttered to himself. Click. Before he finished, Jengar had already snapped a photo with its phone. Then, under Johan's stunned gaze, it swiftly sent the picture to Cynthia. Ka. Afterward, it gave Johan a smug look. Johan couldn't help but give it a thumbs up. You're bold. Next time Garchomp comes for you, don't drag me into it. After joyfully flying a lap in the night sky, the newly evolved Dragonair returned to Johan. Dra! Thud! And pounced right onto him, pinning him to the ground. The weight of Dragonair was significantly more than Dratini, and it immediately coiled itself tightly around Johan. Congratulations on your evolution, Dragonair. Feeling the binding effect, Johan laughed. Dra! Dragonair affectionately rubbed its head against Johan's face. Since you've evolved, we should celebrate. What do you all think? Ka. Oh, how do you want to celebrate? The Pokémon exchanged glances. How to celebrate? Chew. Tinkatuff jumped up. Let's take a cruise ship. Woo! A melodious whistle echoed. Johan leaned against the railing on the deck, letting the warm breeze ruffle his hair as he watched Vermilion City fade into the distance. Since the Pokémon had expressed their desire to take a cruise, Johan, who had already completed his teaching duties and had nothing else to do, naturally agreed to their request. This time, they were aboard the SS Rapidash cruise ship, heading towards Cinnabar Island, located in the southernmost part of the Kanto region. As the ship departed the port, tourists gradually gathered on the deck. Among them were several trainers who immediately began Pokémon battles on the spot. Johan's Dragonair, unsurprisingly, caught the attention of many. As a pseudo-legendary Pokémon from the Kanto region, Dragonair was highly recognizable, especially to teenagers who appeared to be no older than their early teens. Eventually, one of them mustered the courage to approach him. Big brother, let's have an intense Pokémon battle. The youngster in beach shorts challenged him eagerly. Noting the excitement on the boy's face, Johan raised an eyebrow and turned to his Pokémon. Do you guys feel like it? Dragonair, having only recently evolved, immediately straightened up with enthusiasm. Dra! Seeing this, Johan chuckled and gave a slight nod. Dragonair excitedly slithered over to face the boy. The boy's excitement grew even more when he realized his opponent would be Dragonair. My Raticate won't lose. A few seconds later, a sudden torrent of water nearly engulfed half the deck, leaving many who were unaware of the situation thinking the ship might have capsized. So powerful. The trainers watching alongside the boy gasped in unison. As for the boy's Raticate, it barely avoided drowning. The commotion was so great that it even attracted the sailors on board, forcing Johan to flee with his Pokémon. That said, Dragonair's evolution had undoubtedly brought a significant leap in strength. Even the power of its hydro pump had greatly increased. At this point, it could hardly be called a hydro pump. It was more like a water release. Who broke the dam? Coupled with the newly learned Dragon Dance, Dragonair's strength was now formidable. Dragonair seemed a bit apologetic about what had happened to Raticate. Its recent evolution had left it a little too excited, and it had lost control. This drew a round of knowing laughter from Johan and his Pokémon. Battles are like this. They'd work on control gradually through training. Upon entering the cabin, Johan discovered that the SS Rapidash was incredibly luxurious, with every amenity imaginable. In addition to spacious accommodations, there was a Pokémon Center, a restaurant, a supermarket, a battle arena, a training room, and more. Following the principle that no shopping trip is complete without a drink, Johan and his Pokémon each got a fresh berry juice shortly after boarding. Under the staff's bewildered gaze, Johan even ordered himself a sherry berry juice. Then, with drinks in hand, they strolled leisurely through the cabin. When they reached the enormous shopping mall on board, the Pokémon froze in their tracks. Well, since we're here, let's buy some gifts, Johan said with a smile. Truthfully, he hadn't expected the SS Rapidash to have a shopping mall. This was going to be a wallet-draining experience. The mall was divided into 3 levels: clothing, trainer supplies, and household goods. The clothing section sold outfits for trainers, as well as various Pokémon clothes and accessories. The household section had daily necessities, while the trainer supplies section offered a range of common and rare items, such as TMs, Pokeballs, and berries. The moment Johan stepped into the mall, he spotted a signature outfit modeled after Red's. Unfortunately, Red hadn't debuted yet, let alone become famous, so the outfit wasn't particularly popular. Johan navigated the aisles while helping his Pokémon pick gifts. Gengar was the quickest. It immediately selected a pair of large, transparent goggles, claiming they would let it fly faster without worrying about keeping its eyes open. After purchasing the goggles, Gengar eagerly put them on. To Johan's surprise, the purple prankster actually looked quite good in them. The goggles gave it a different vibe, less outlaw, and more playful, which Johan found quite satisfactory. Tinkatuff chose a Skarmory plushie, which Johan bought without hesitation. So long as Tinkatuff didn't rip up any part of the cruise ship, such small requests were perfectly fine. This plushie completed Tinkatuff's collection, which now included all steel/flying Pokémon plushies in the world, except for Celesteela. For some reason, Johan couldn't help but look forward to Tinkatuff's reaction if it ever encountered a Celesteela in the future. He quickly shook off the thought. Great, now I'm catching their habits, Johan muttered. For Dragonair, Johan purchased a soft blanket. The naturally competitive Pokémon had a fondness for soft things. The old blanket that Johan had used for naps at home had already become Dragonair's go-to bedding, but its quality was subpar and the fluff was nearly worn out. Dragonair loved the new blanket so much that it immediately wrapped its tail around it and refused to let go. The only thing that seemed to bother Dragonair was the lack of Johan's scent on the new blanket. It glanced slyly at Johan, its eyes darting about, clearly scheming. As for Vulpix, Johan knew exactly what it wanted, a cute little blue bow to tie around its neck. So adorable, Johan praised as he tied the bow on. The Pokémon thought their shopping trip was over, but Johan wasn't done yet. Since we're buying gifts, we should get something for everyone. Poor Wallet. The unshakable instinct of a generous host strikes again. Johan went on a shopping spree. For Meowth, who loved music, he bought a retro CD, which matched its personality perfectly. For Wobbuffet, he got a straw hat. It needed protection for that shiny, bald head of its. For Mew, a delicate music box. For Mewtwo, a philosophy book. Though neither Mew nor Mewtwo would show up anytime soon, Johan figured it was better to be prepared. Mew might drop by to download new TV shows, and a philosophy book seemed fitting for Mewtwo's introspective nature. As for people, a shovel for James, an apron for Jesse, a headband for Roxanne, a hairpin for Flannery, a tie pin for Steven, a small dragon-shaped badge for Lance, a Clefairy plushie for Sabrina, an ice cream-shaped hair clip for Cynthia. Finally, Johan paid for everything, packed the gifts into a large bag, and stuffed them into Gengar's mouth. Traveling with Gengar was undeniably convenient. The next morning, Johan woke up in his cabin. For once, he hadn't been awakened by Gengar licking his face and had enjoyed a restful sleep. As he pulled off his blanket, he noticed an extra one underneath, Dragonair's newly purchased blanket. When he looked toward the end of the bed, he caught Dragonair peeking at him with one eye open before quickly shutting it and burying its face. Does Dragonair like blankets chilled by Vulpix's ice? Later, on the deck, Johan held Vulpix in his arms as they gazed at the approaching island. Patting Vulpix's head, Johan smiled. Let's go enjoy the hot springs. Kanto, Cinnabar Island. Situated in the southernmost part of the Kanto region, this large island is home to both an active volcano and natural hot springs, much like Lavaridge Town in the Hoenn region. It is a must-visit tourist destination in Kanto. Woo-woo. The sea breeze carried a faint warmth mixed with a hint of sulfur as it brushed past, while wind gulls soared low over the blue waters. There was no denying it. As winter approached, the volcanic activity on Cinnabar Island made its weather exceptionally pleasant. As soon as Johan and his team stepped off the boat, they were greeted by numerous attendants trying to attract customers, most of whom worked for the island's inns. The streets were lined with various shops, and the tourists strolling about were mostly dressed in Alolan-style floral shirts and beach shorts, embracing the idea of blending in and enjoying their vacation. Johan led his Pokémon into a beachwear shop. Alola, the shopkeeper, dressed in a blue beach outfit, greeted them warmly as they entered. "Oh, an Alolan Vulpix. That's quite rare to see." It was evident the shopkeeper was originally from the Alola region and had opened this shop on Cinnabar Island. "Alola," Johan replied with a smile. In the Alola region, Alola was a greeting that meant hello, goodbye, or even I love you, encompassing sentiments of hope, love, peace, and happiness. It was a very warm and friendly greeting. With Johan's response, combined with the sight of the Alolan Vulpix, the shopkeeper became even more enthusiastic and offered them a significant discount. When Johan emerged from his shop, he was wearing a beach outfit adorned with pink cherries and carrying Vulpix, now adorned with a beautiful flower garland. Behind him, Gengar wore its wind goggles and a purple floral shirt, while Tinkatuff sported a smaller blue floral shirt. As for Dragonair, it had donned a pale yellow wide-brimmed beach hat that covered most of its head, making it a bit difficult for it to see the road. Dragonair this way. Cinnabar Island had numerous inns, including several owned by Team Rocket. But Johan, experienced as he was, knew how to pick a reliable hot spring inn. Nightfall. The sound of trickling water accompanied Johan as he carried a large platter of fruit toward an open-air hot spring shrouded in mist. Plop! Splash! Warm water splashed over him, drenching his face. Johan, with a stiff expression, he wiped the water off his face and looked at Gengar, who was floating on its back in the spring. His eye twitched slightly. The chubby prankster had jumped in head first, causing the water level to rise dramatically and spill over the edges. Having bathed in hot springs before, Gengar was entirely at ease and not the least bit shy. It waved at Johan and the others, laughing gleefully. "Kaka, here I go." Blub, blub, blub. Diving underwater, it started freestyle swimming. Next was Tinkatuff. Tentatively, it dipped one small foot into the water, hesitated, then, reassured it was only slightly hot, took a deep breath and jumped in, mimicking Gengar's style. Splash! However, blub, blub, blub. A few bubbles rose to the surface, but Tinkatuff didn't resurface. Knowing Tinkatuff had jumped in with its hammer again, Gengar, unfazed, took a deep breath and dove to retrieve it. Dragonair, also experiencing a hot spring for the first time, slid in with a plop and happily floated around. It surfaced after a while, grinning at Johan before letting out a contented burp. Johan massaged his temples. Trouble. Ooh. If any of his Pokémon were afraid of water, it would undoubtedly be Vulpix. Like Tinkatuff, Vulpix cautiously approached the spring, extending a tiny paw to test the water. Ooh. Angry face. Too hot. Familiar with its timid nature, Johan smirked mischievously, scooped it up, and jumped into the spring together. Ooh. Ooh. Every bath with Vulpix was a chaotic affair, but once it settled in, it always ended up enjoying itself. Minutes later, the spring quieted down. Only 5 heads, Johan, Gengar, Vulpix, Dragonair, and Tinkatuff, rested against the edge of the spring, each topped with a white towel. Oh, and there was a hammer leaning on the edge, half submerged, also draped with a towel. Ah, this is the life, Johan said, eyes half closed. The Pokémon collectively sighed in agreement. The hot spring was incredibly relaxing. Beep beep. Just as Johan was fully unwinding, his phone rang. He opened it to find a video message from Cynthia. The star of the video? Her Garchomp. Ruer. In the video, Garchomp's eyes glowed red as it brandished its sharp scythes and roared. If translated, the meaning would roughly be, "Look at me, you coward." Johan's eye twitched as he elbowed Gengar. Kaka, it's for you. He showed Gengar the video. Kaka. Sigma. Click. Johan snapped a photo of Gengar's startled expression and sent it to Cynthia. Grain in the field. It seems to know it was wrong. Eevee eats cabbage. Garchomp says, don't run after school next time. Jengar taunt.jpg. Johan. Hold on. Jengar sent the video. Dragonair showed off its dragon dance, so why was he being blamed? Evie eats cabbage. Are you soaking a hot spring? Noticing that Jengar seemed to be in a hot spring, Cynthia quickly shifted the topic. Seeing a chance to steer the conversation away, Johan replied without hesitation. Grain in the field. Yes, you should join us next time. It wasn't until he hit send that he realized his mistake. A shiver ran down his spine as he imagined Garchomp and Lucario glaring at him from behind, just as he was about to retract the message. Evie eats cabbage, sure. Cynthia, far away in Unova, blushed slightly and put her phone away. Nearby, Caitlin gave her a suspicious look. What's up? Nothing. Just the moon's really round tonight. Caitlin glanced out the window. There was no moon. After soaking in a hot spring and changing into fresh clothes, Johan planned to take his Pokémon to watch Cinnabar Island's unique volcanic movie. But as he stepped out the door, a man with a brown wig, fake mustache, round glasses, and a flamboyant red outfit suddenly appeared in front of him. Johan studied the man, finding him vaguely familiar. Hey, want to solve a riddle? There's a prize if you guess right, the man said cheerfully. A riddle? Before Johan could respond, Jengar eagerly raised its hand, grinning mischievously. Kaka, me. Finally recognizing the odd man, Johan said, So, Blaine, the gym leader? The man stiffened, clutching his head. B. Blaine? Who's Blaine? Never heard of him. Seeing Johan's skeptical look, the man sighed, removed his wig and glasses, and said, You figured it out. I expected no less from you, Teacher Johan. Johan, so everyone in the Pokemon world has this much faith in their disguises? Or is this just a Team Rocket tradition? Jengar gasped dramatically, pointing at the unmasked man. Kaka, it was a disguise. Blaine laughed heartily. Now that's the reaction I expected. Johan sighed internally. Can I pretend I don't know these people? Still, Blaine's appearance was unexpected yet made sense. After all, among Team Rocket's undercover executives, Blaine was the only one Johan hadn't faced yet. Feeling his Pokemon's eagerness, Johan exhaled. Very well, he said, his gaze sharp. Please accept my gym challenge, Blaine. Oh, Blaine paused, looked at the volcano badge in his hand, and put it away with a smile. Very well, let's battle. The Cinnabar Gym is located beneath Cinnabar Island, with its battlefield surrounded by searing lava. Falling off the platform into the lava during a match could easily result in a fatal accident, making it an undeniably dangerous place. Additionally, the temperature inside the gym is extremely high, testing not just the Pokemon, but also the physical endurance and resilience of the trainers. However, with Jengar and Vulpix by his side, Johan felt none of the oppressive heat. In fact, the temperature felt just right to him. On the other hand, Blaine was already drenched in sweat, visibly uncomfortable in the intense heat, though his excitement was palpable. As a young man, Blaine had been saved by the legendary Pokemon Moltres, which sparked his lifelong passion for Fire-type Pokemon. This battlefield, with its fiery environment, was clearly a significant advantage for him and his Pokemon. A true home turf scenario. Boom! Chunks of rock tumbled into the lava below, sending up bursts of blistering flames. Kaka! Jengar grinned wickedly as it bounced energetically around the field. Opposite it, Blaine's majestic Rapidash had collapsed, its flames dimmed, and it was no longer able to battle. By now, Blaine's initial enthusiasm had been thoroughly extinguished. Battling Jengar had left him with nothing but goosebumps. Rapidash had been his first Pokemon in the match, but unsurprisingly, it had fallen to Jengar's relentless tactics. Jengar's endless arsenal of control moves had left Blaine feeling thoroughly uncomfortable. That said, Rapidash hadn't gone down without contributing. It had managed to significantly drain Jengar's stamina. Go, Ninetales! Pushing past his discomfort, Blaine sent out his second Pokemon. The elegant, golden-furred Ninetales, with its 9 flowing tails, landed lightly on the field. Uwu. Seeing Ninetales take the stage, the Vulpix in Johan's arms perked up curiously. Ninetales, sunny day? The already sweltering battlefield, heated by the surrounding lava, became even more unbearable as the intense sunlight further elevated the temperature. It felt like a sauna. Ka. While Ninetales was adjusting the weather, Jengar, following Johan's signal, seized the opportunity to hurl a glob of toxic sludge at its opponent. Flamethrower! Blaine shouted. A scorching heat wave erupted. Enhanced by the sunny day, the roaring flames surged like a crimson dragon toward Jengar. Substitute. Johan's command was calm and precise. Boom! Jengar's substitute was engulfed and obliterated by the flames. It still has the energy to use substitute, Blaine muttered, exasperated. How many times had this Jengar used substitute already? Did it have infinite stamina? What on earth had Johan been feeding it? Never before had Blaine felt so helpless against a Pokémon. Johan's Jengar was the first. As the blazing fire cleared, Jengar's figure was nowhere to be seen on the battlefield. Instead, there was now a much smaller, snow-white Pokémon. Vulpix. Ninetales versus Vulpix? Wasn't this just serving itself up on a platter? Fire types had a significant advantage over ice types. Not to mention, Ninetales was a fully evolved Pokémon, whereas Vulpix was still in its base form. However, Blaine quickly realized something was amiss. A tiny, glimmering shard of ice spiraled down before him. He caught it in his hand, where it rapidly melted, leaving a refreshing chill. Snow? Inside a volcanic gym? With sunny day in effect? How is this possible? Uwu. At Vulpix's soft cry, the oppressive heat of the battlefield plummeted at an alarming rate. Snowflakes began to drift down one after another. Blaine's eyes widened in disbelief. Snow warning. To create snow in such extreme heat, one incredible ice-type ability. Blaine's eyes lit up with renewed excitement. Ninetales flamethrower again. Vulpix Aurora Veil. The swirling snow refracted the light, forming a shimmering barrier of aurora-like colors in front of Vulpix. Boom! The intense flames collided with the veil, scattering as if hitting an unyielding wall. The scattered flames caused the temperature to rise slightly once more. However, crash! The aurora veil shattered under the onslaught of fire. Yet Blaine's shock deepened as he realized there wasn't just one veil. There was another one underneath. More importantly, the refracted light revealed that Vulpix had not merely set up one or two layers of aurora veil during the fight. It had stacked multiple layers. Blaine's mouth twitched slightly. What a cautious Vulpix. But Blaine's eyes narrowed. Ninetales, unleash your flames. If he couldn't break the veils quickly, he would focus on raising the battlefield's temperature to nullify the snow and, in turn, eliminate the aurora veil. Ninetales spread its nine tails wide, releasing searing heat that distorted the air and steadily raised the temperature. Seeing this, Johan frowned slightly. Having Vulpix face Ninetales might indeed be pushing it. Still, having the snow warning ability counteract sunny day was more than enough. Vulpix! Before Johan could finish, Vulpix let out a defiant cry. Ooh, I'm not done yet. Johan was momentarily stunned. It still wanted to fight, refusing to back down? Perhaps it was because it was facing Ninetales, or maybe it was the challenge of a fire-type opponent, but Vulpix's fighting spirit burned brighter than ever. Seeing its determination, Johan smiled. All right, then no more holding back. Use Blizzard. Ooh. Vulpix's eyes glowed with a psychic hue. Empowered by its psychic abilities, a howling blizzard engulfed the battlefield. Whoosh! The ice and snow, previously diminishing, now surged with even greater intensity, driving temperatures down further. What incredible ice-type energy! Blaine laughed heartily, watching Vulpix's determined gaze. Though you're an ice-type Pokémon, your fiery passion for battle resonates with us. Ninetales' flames roared brighter, its Ninetales flaring as it unleashed its full power. The snow thickened, obscuring vision, while Ninetales' flames burned fiercely in defiance. One side white, the other red. The battlefield was starkly divided. Suddenly, Blaine's expression shifted. Ninetales dodged quickly. It was too late. Johan seized the moment and shouted, Vulpix! Boom! The ground beneath Ninetales cracked open. Vulpix burst out, ramming into Ninetales with tremendous force. The impact sent Ninetales flying before it crashed to the ground, its eyes rolling back as it fainted. Using the snowstorm to obscure vision and execute a surprise attack, Blaine was taken aback. He couldn't recall when Johan had commanded Vulpix to use Dig. Come back, Vulpix! After defeating Ninetales, Johan quickly recalled the little Pokémon. If it hadn't been for Jengar's toxic and Blaine's focus on direct combat, things would have been much tougher, Johan thought, holding Vulpix, now covered in dust and with slightly singed fur. Vulpix let out a low whimper, seemingly aware it had been lucky. You were amazing, absolutely brilliant. Now rest up. Johan reassured it gently, stroking its head. Hearing his words, Vulpix relaxed and quickly fell asleep. The battle had clearly taken a lot out of it. And now for my final Pokémon, Magmar. Blaine sent out his third Pokémon, the Fire-type Magmar. Your turn, Johan said, throwing another Pokeball. Draw! Dragonair appeared on the field, eager for battle. The sight of Magmar seemed to energize Blaine as he adjusted his glasses and shouted, Flare Blitz! An overwhelming wave of heat radiated as Magmar charged at Dragonair in a fiery rush. Johan exhaled softly. Finally, a battle where he didn't have to fight against type advantages. Hydro Pump, he commanded. The two attacks collided, and steam filled the arena as water overpowered fire. Noticing Dragonair's immense power, Blaine could only chuckle wryly. This doesn't seem fair. In the end, Dragonair's Dragon Rush overpowered Magmar's Flare Blitz, ending the battle decisively. Though injured, Dragonair was beaming as Johan praised it warmly. On the other side, Blaine recalled Magmar and, despite his loss, grinned widely. I've lost, he declared, thoroughly satisfied. Well, aside from your Pokémon being just a bit unreasonable, that was fantastic. This is the Volcano Badge, signifying that you have passed the trial of the Cinnabar Gym. Blaine, drenched in sweat, handed Johan a crimson badge shaped like flames. How many does that make now? Kaka. Jengar snatched the badge and began to play with it in its hands. And this too. As per tradition, Blaine rummaged around and retrieved a technical machine, TM. What's this? Overheat, Blaine said with a hearty laugh. I've spent quite some time refining this move. The version I'm giving you should pack even more of punch. Even if the move backfires, there's always medium heat overheat and small heat overheat, right? Regardless, Johan was happy to accept such a powerful fire-type move. Having recently obtained Thunder and now Overheat, the combined value of these TMs exceeded $1 million Poke Dollars. Not to mention the added bonus of personal tips from Watson and Blaine. However, the materials required to teach these moves would likely cost a fortune. And both Thunder and Overheat would undoubtedly cause a ruckus during training. Johan couldn't help but worry about his house, especially since only Dragonair could learn Overheat and Dragonair's off-battle luck. Setting something on fire wouldn't even be surprising. Leaving the gym, the cool evening breeze offered much-needed relief to Johan and Blaine, who were both drenched in sweat. Seeing Blaine pale and looking utterly spent, Johan couldn't help but ask, Are you all right, Blaine? I'm fine. Despite his lips being a little pale, Blaine waved it off energetically. That was the coolest battle I've ever had. Johan's expression turned a bit odd. He'd heard rumors that Blaine didn't like challengers coming to the gym and had disguised it as a hot spring resort to deter them. He had assumed it was because Blaine, like Watson, didn't care for weak challengers. But now it seemed the real reason was that each challenge left Blaine utterly drained. Why build a gym's battlefield inside a volcano? Johan, how about soaking in the hot springs with me to relax? Blaine stretched, his joints cracking loudly. I just remembered I might have left the gas on at home. See you later, Blaine. Johan and Jengar hurriedly fled. Watching their retreating figures, Blaine smacked his lips. Ah, youth. So much energy, even after a battle. Under the gentle moonlight, the quiet courtyard echoed with the rhythmic clacking of bamboo fountains. Having declined Blaine's invitation to the hot springs, Johan still ended up soaking in a hot spring for over half an hour with his Pokémon. Lounging on the smooth, exposed gray rock, he gazed softly at his 4 Pokémon playing in the water. Both Vulpix and Dragonair had taken some hits during the battle, but after liberal applications of healing and burn sprays, they were mostly recovered. They were now frolicking in the spring, indicating they were back in good shape. Johan gently stroked Dragonair's tail as it rested beside him, lost in thought. Dragonair can fly, so can it be ridden? Could it carry a person? Theoretically, with Dragonair's size, carrying a person should be easy, as long as he held on tight and didn't fall off. And if that didn't work, Gengar could probably step in as backup. Without realizing it, they've all grown up, Johan murmured, a hint of sentimentality in his voice. Ghastly had evolved into Gengar, and Tinkadink had evolved into Tinkatuff. Dratini had grown into Dragonair. Even Vulpix, though not yet evolved, had come a long way. From the shy, timid little creature hiding in a trash heap, it had grown into a Pokémon brave enough to face off against Ninetales, withstand its assaults, and ultimately defeat it. The look in Vulpix's eyes as it asked Johan not to withdraw it during the battle with Ninetales was a stark reminder of how much it had changed and grown. Growth for Pokémon wasn't just about evolution. Of course, evolution was a profound transformation of life itself, a rebirth at its core. But Johan valued even more the emotional and mental growth of his Pokémon. Whether to evolve or not was up to them. His job was to care for and nurture this group of little companions. Gengar, Johan suddenly called out. Kaka. Gengar, disguised as a ghostly fountain, looked over, water trickling from its mouth. Johan's eye twitched. Am I poisoned now? How many badges have we collected? At his question, all 4 Pokémon crowded around. 8 badges, each in different colors and designs, were neatly laid out beside the hot spring. Among them were 2 badges from other regions, Hoenn Stone Badge and Johto's Rising Badge. The Pokémon chattered excitedly, each boasting about which badges they had helped earn, their pride evident. Badges aren't just tokens of a trainer's strength. They're medals for the Pokémon as well, Johan thought, gaining a deeper appreciation for their significance. They temporarily set aside the Stone Badge and Rising Badge. Wait, Tinkatuff, the pink badge is from Kanto 2. Chew! Tinkatuff blinked, then reluctantly returned the pink badge with a look of disdain. Badges given away don't feel as meaningful. Kaka. Counting the remaining badges, Gengar realized they had 6. Uwu. Are we too short? Vulpix asked. Yeah. Johan rubbed his chin. That left Cerulean Gym and Pewter Gym. Kaka. When do we challenge them? Gengar asked eagerly. Johan shot a glance. It's not that simple. Seeing the Pokémon's puzzled expressions, he collected the badges and explained. You've seen how strong the Kanto gym leaders are, right? Hearing this, the Pokémon nodded solemnly. Even they had heard the rumor that Kanto's gyms were the toughest to beat, and their experiences confirmed it. So, Johan continued, face serious. The last 2 gyms are the hardest. The Pokémon's expressions grew grim. Everyone knows. The best is saved for last, and the hardest challenges often come at the end. Clearly, the remaining gyms were nightmare-level difficulty. While you're strong against other gyms for these 2, I can only say we need more training. Kaka, led by Gengar, all 4 Pokémon nodded earnestly. More training it is. Now, Johan declared, rising from the spring and wrapping a towel around himself. Time for training? The Pokémon looked at him eagerly. Time for a midnight snack. Huh? You can't train well without a full belly or a good night's sleep. Oh, something fell off about that logic, but it made sense. Due to the volcano, Cinnabar Island lacked an airport. The next day, Johan and his team took a small ferry across a strait to Pallet Town. Johan was still hesitant about testing Dragonair's ability to carry him in flight. He didn't enter Pallet Town, opting instead to catch a bus from its outskirts to Viridian City. Having spent time in Kanto, Johan had developed a constant sense that he might be challenged at any moment. After all, Kanto was likely the region with the most battle-enthusiastic trainers, as proven by all the youngsters and bug catchers. He didn't want to risk running into Professor Oak, who might suddenly suggest a practice match. Not to mention, the professor's enthusiasm for Jengar had even started to make Jengar uneasy. So, they bypassed Pallet Town entirely. Before reaching the bus station, they had to cross a large field. The winter sun shone warmly, the grass swayed in the breeze, and everything seemed peaceful. Maybe I'll save Pewter and Cerulean gyms for later and head home for a nap, Johan thought cheerfully. Con! Suddenly, a flock of Spearow, like a black cloud, swooped down, their red eyes locked onto Johan's team. Johan pinched the bridge of his nose. I forgot these guys ruled this area. But they only bullied new trainers like Ash and Pikachu. Zap! Oh woo! A blizzard whipped up, followed by Dragonair's thunderbolt. The golden lightning tore through the black cloud, sending Spearow plummeting like rain. After this Spearow rain, a rainbow arced across the sky, and a magnificent tail feather traced the horizon, leaving shimmering sparkles in its wake. Chew! Tinkatuff squealed excitedly, immediately searching for a rock to throw. Caca! Jengar rolled its eyes. What's the big deal? Just a shiny Fearow. Still, it admitted it was pretty, but Johan wasn't so calm. Staring at the sky, he murmured, "It's Ho-Oh." Vulpix and Dragonair exchanged knowing looks. So that's Ho-Oh, the cameraman. The brilliant figure in the rainbow was none other than the legendary Pokémon, Ho-Oh. They say Ho-Oh only appears to righteous trainers, and no one has ever seen its full form. Only whispers of legend. Recalling the tale, Johan raised an eyebrow. So, I really am a righteous trainer, huh? Ho-Oh. Johan hadn't expected Ho-Oh to appear before him, even though he knew Ash hadn't started his journey yet, and Ho-Oh might have some spare time on its talents. Undeniably, this was an acknowledgement of his worth as a trainer. As Johan marveled at the sight, Tinkatuff, standing beside him, had already found a stone on the ground. Chew! A big bird. With a flick of its wrist, Tinkatuff tossed the stone into the air, gripping its hammer tightly and taking a deep breath. Tinkatuff! Johan shouted in alarm, trying to stop it. Chew! Tinkatuff looked at him, confused. But it's a shiny Fearow. A shiny one. Ding! Despite Johan's interruption, the stone was still flung into the sky, missing Ho-Oh entirely. Johan wiped the sweat from his forehead. This little troublemaker's courage was truly something else. Did it think Ho-Oh was just a glorified cameraman? If angered, Ho-Oh could be terrifying. Even its subordinate, Marshadao, could reduce them all to ash. Suddenly, Johan felt a piercing gaze from above, causing his body to tense. When he looked up, he found himself locking eyes with Ho-Oh, which glanced downward at him. Johan, holding Tinkatuff tightly, forced a friendly smile. As a virtuous and upright trainer, everything that just happened was a misunderstanding. Caw! Ho-Oh let out a resounding cry, the sky turning golden as its magnificent wings cast a shimmering glow. It glanced at Johan once more before turning away and speeding off, vanishing into the horizon. Johan! Chew! Before Ho-Oh disappeared completely, a fiery object began to spiral down from the sky, catching Tinkatuff's immediate attention. A trophy? Huh? Johan snapped out his thoughts and ran toward where the flaming object landed. As they approached, the fire had dissipated, leaving a resplendent, rainbow-colored feather gently descending from above. The rainbow wing. Chew! Tinkatuff's eyes sparkled with excitement. Even though I didn't hit the bird, it still dropped loot. In its mind, knocking feathers off birds seemed perfectly natural. But Johan's expression grew complicated. Something didn't feel right. Could it be that Ho-Oh thought it was beneath itself to act directly and left the rainbow wing as a marker for Marshadao to handle things? What if I pick up this rainbow wing and a Marshadao suddenly leaps out of the shadows to challenge me? What then? Even Ash, the so-called super rookie, had been turned to ash by Marshadao's power. Declaring his name hadn't helped him either. It was only through Ho-Oh's intervention that Ash was resurrected. Wait a second. It's widely known that Ho-Oh revived 3 Pokémon from the burned tower, creating the legendary beasts Raikou, Nei, and Suicune. If Ash was also resurrected by Ho-Oh, could that mean Ash is equivalent to the legendary beasts? Case solved. No wonder Ash possesses such remarkable strength. He's on par with the legendary beasts. Johan's thoughts began to spiral until he snapped himself back to reality. The rainbow wing had already been grabbed by Gengar. Its radiant glow was beginning to dim, turning noticeably duller. Kaka. Gengar tilted its head, confused. This feather can lose its shine? Johan's expression shifted. Gengar, do you have any self-awareness? If this continued, the rainbow wing might completely lose its luster. It's said that the rainbow wing only glows in the presence of a trainer with a pure heart, Johan muttered. Gengar scratched its head and then lit up with realization. Kaka. Oh, it's because I'm not a trainer. Johan gave it a sidelong glance. Let's not crush its spirit. Kaka. Gengar handed the rainbow wing to Johan. Taking a deep breath, Johan accepted it. The moment the rainbow wing touched his hand, he felt a faint warmth. Then, the feather dimmed rapidly, losing all its color. Johan. Wait a minute. It only dulled slightly in Gengar's hand, but in mine, it turned completely black. Are you mocking me? As his Pokémon gave him strange looks, Johan broke out in a cold sweat. He took another deep breath. Shine for me. With that, a faint blue glow emanated from his palm. Aura, guide me. Buzz. The rainbow wing regained its brilliant, rainbow-colored glow. See? It's glowing now, Johan said, panting. Kaka. Gengar gave him a thumbs up. The other Pokémon looked at Johan with admiration. Wiping his forehead discreetly, Johan thought, aura powers are so useful. He also realized something else. The rainbow wing might be useful for training aura. That was a promising discovery. The only issue was figuring out who should use it. Gengar? Definitely not. Vulpix? Its typing wasn't compatible. Tinkatuff? It might hammer the feather into its weapon. Dragonair? Probably not a good match either. Forget it. I'll hold on to it for now. In critical situations, the rainbow wing could save lives. Johan! A voice called out from the distance. Turning toward the source, Johan saw a Dragonite speeding toward him with Professor Oak on its back, wearing his signature white lab coat. Huh? Johan blinked. If he didn't know better, he might have mistaken the professor for Lance. Woo! Dragonite chirped cheerfully as it landed, and Professor Oak hopped off, his expression excited. Is that Ho-Oh's rainbow wing? Oak asked. No, Johan said, blatantly lying. But Oak wasn't listening. Stroking his chin, he closely examined the feather. As I thought, this is Ho-Oh's rainbow wing. That special magnetic field we detected earlier must have been Ho-Oh. Legend has it that Ho-Oh only leaves its feather to chosen trainers, and only those with pure hearts can make the rainbow wing shine. Professor Oak muttered to himself like a man possessed. When he finished, he clapped Johan on the shoulder and declared, as expected of the Aura Master, even Ho-Oh holds you in high regard. Oak was aware of Johan's online reputation for helping trainers and Pokémon in need without expecting anything in return. Johan, however, wanted to say, you take it instead. By the way, Oak said, snapping out of his awe for Ho-Oh and its feather, why didn't you stop by Pallet Town? I got lost. Oak nodded sympathetically. That makes sense. I get lost all the time, too. After a pause, he added, come on, I'll show you the way. Kaka. At some point, Gengar had hidden behind Johan. It's Gengar. Noticing the Pokémon, Oak's gaze softened as he smiled warmly. Come on, back to the lab. I'll treat you all to a feast. Pallet Town, Professor Oak's laboratory. Gengar stared blankly at the cup noodles boiling over a burner. Scratching its head, it looked at Johan. A feast? Johan gave it a reassuring look. Cup noodles are Professor Oak's highest culinary achievement. If he cooked anything else, I wouldn't dare eat it. Ha ha! It's ready. Oak happily handed out portions of noodles. When it comes to cooking cup noodles, I have no equal, he said confidently. Johan believed him. Slurp. Gengar took a bite, and its eyes lit up. The taste wasn't bad at all. While it didn't match Johan's cooking, it was easily the second-best noodles it had ever eaten. Soon, The lab was filled with the sound of enthusiastic slurping. By the way, where's Green? Johan asked, noticing the absence of the professor's grandson. Oak chuckled. Green's over at Hanako's house. Hanako, a family in town. They adore Green and often invite him over for meals. Does Hanako have a kid? Johan asked tentatively. You know Ash. Oak looked surprised. No. Johan quickly shook his head. So Ash exists too, huh? Ash and Green? What about Red? Johan was still trying to piece together the logic of this Pokemon world. I do know about Red, Johan said after a pause. Haha, so you've heard of him too. He's an exceptional kid, Oak replied with a smile. Red and Green should both start their journeys next year, Oak added. Johan nodded, processing the information. And what about Ash? Ash still has a couple more years, Oak said between bites of noodles. So Red and Ash are just kids. Oh, I heard you're planning to enter the Indigo League, Oak suddenly said. Huh? Who told you that? Erica, Oak replied. After her exchange visit to your academy, she's been singing your praises and recommending you for a teaching position at Celadon University. Johan, Celadon University truly seemed to be a hub for talent. One more thing, Oak said, his tone turning serious. After rummaging through some drawers, he produced a brand new Pokédex. Johan sighed deeply. So I couldn't dodge this after all. Hoenn Region, Rustboro City. Every time I go out, I feel completely drained, Johan muttered as he looked at the still-lit cafe not far away. At least the comforting glow of the lights brought him some solace. Tomorrow, I can finally sleep in, Johan said with a sigh of relief. In stark contrast to Johan's relaxed expression, Jengar's face was full of determination. Kaka, tomorrow we'll train hard. Jengar hadn't forgotten the challenge ahead, the two most difficult gyms in Kanto. It couldn't afford to lose face for Johan when the time came. Ding-dong. As Johan pushed open the cafe door, the wind chime hanging above, a chime designed like a chime cho, let out a crisp ringing sound. Welcome. 3 familiar voices called out in unison as Meowth, wearing a waiter's uniform, immediately rushed to greet the newcomer. Johan-sensei. When they saw that it was Johan, all 3 showed surprise, followed by delight. These are gifts I brought for you, Johan said, smiling as he handed out the items he had prepared for them. For James, there was a shovel. For Jessie, an apron. For Meowth, a CD. For Wobbuffet, a straw hat. You even brought us presents. The trio immediately burst into tears, hugging each other tightly in gratitude. Our officer, holding down the entire Hoenn branch on their own and still taking on such tough missions, and you still thought of us. It's so moving, X3. Truth be told, the trio had been through plenty of hardships. Even James, who came from a wealthy family, had faced hunger and setbacks after running away from home. Yet this was the first time they had ever received a gift. Even something small and seemingly ordinary held deep significance for them. Wobbuffet, standing at attention, Wobbuffet saluted with tears streaming down its face. Can you guys tone it down when you whisper next time? Johan thought, suppressing a wry smile as he looked at the group. No matter what, the trio always came across as sincere and heartfelt. In the original series, even though they often went after Ash and Pikachu, they were willing to help when they saw something truly unjust, sometimes even teaming up with Ash and Pikachu. By the way, Johan said, tapping the table to get their attention, his gaze sweeping across the group. There's something I'd like to discuss with you. Johan-sensei, please just tell us what to do. We'll give it our all, James said earnestly, wiping his eyes. That's right. Whatever Pokemon you want us to capture, we'll... MMPF. Meowth and James quickly covered Jessie's mouth. Just tell us what you need, Meow, Meowth said with an awkward smile. Johan rubbed his forehead. Build me a Gundam. James blinked. What's a Gundam? Jessie asked. Consider it done, Meow. Meowth replied instantly. Wobbuffet. Angle degree. Johan tapped his head. You're getting me off track here. It's like this. I want you to... He briefly explained his idea for a TV series. I'm going to act. Jessie was the first to react, jumping up excitedly. Among the trio, Jessie had always dreamed of being a star. Her old aspiration to become a celebrity seemed to burn anew. Jesselyn returns to the stage. And you'll be the lead actress, Johan added without missing a beat. As for Meowth, after much deliberation, Johan decided it was better suited for the role of the cat character than a Persian. Although Meowth's smaller size might be a concern, if the co-star was a Piku, Meowth would be the better fit. Besides, Meowth's personal experiences with love were another compelling reason. So, Johan decided to rename the project Meowth and Piku. As for James, he could serve as the director. None of them would need extensive rehearsals. They could just be themselves. Although, the trio's connection to Pikachu seems unshakable. Johan thought, and then said aloud, "No need to decide right away. Take your time to think it over. Production will take some time to organize, and the cafe can't do without you for now." But Johan could tell, they seemed far more interested in making the series than running the cafe. Friday. Clear skies. With his Kanto journey temporarily on hold, Johan returned to his usual laid-back routine. In the courtyard, Johan lounged in the sun, casually playing with the Pokédex Professor Oak had given him, while petting Vulpix's soft fur. Pokédex. Handcrafted by Professor Oak, this Pokédex contains a wealth of Pokémon data, including additional functions such as phone, gaming console, and GPS. Trust me, you don't need it. The Pokédex has a Pokédex entry for itself? Johan's expression turned odd. He hadn't expected his usual system, which only displayed entries for Pokémon, to offer an entry for Professor Oak's Pokédex. Is this professional rivalry? After fiddling with it for a while and finding nothing particularly remarkable, Johan set aside. Pokédexes without Rotom are still kind of basic. Oh well. Vulpix lay curled up in his lap, its eyes closed as its tiny limbs kicked back and forth. Johan smiled warmly, like a doting father. Scooping up Vulpix, he pressed his face into its soft belly and took a deep sniff. Ooh, ooh, the little Pokémon squirmed, kicking its legs in protest. Weighing in at about 10 kilograms, Vulpix felt surprisingly light in Johan's arms. Am I evolving into a super rookie myself? His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed Gengar and Dragonair in the courtyard, preparing a big move. Judging by the crackling electricity, they were about to practice thunder. Quickly, Johan stood up and called a halt. Thunder was no joke. If mishandled, it could destroy the house. The Academy's training facilities would be a safer place for such exercises. After all, if something went wrong there, it would be the school's problem. Rustboro Pokemon Academy, Weather Room. The weather room allowed for adjustable conditions like rain, sunshine, and snow, ideal for practicing weather-based moves. Once there, Johan set the room to simulate rain. 2 Polippers appeared overhead, summoning a heavy downpour. Johan stood under a rain shelter with Vulpix in his arms, while Gengar and Dragonair stood in the torrential rain. Sizzle, sizzle. Electric arcs crackled around Dragonair's horn. Meanwhile, Gengar grinned mischievously, raising its hand where a blue-tinged electric current sparked. Seeing this, Johan's expression changed. You, Sasuke wannabe, are you trying to perfect Chidori? Ready, Johan called out as he activated a switch, causing moving targets to appear in the training field. Thunder. Boom. Boom. 2 charred marks appeared on the wall. The entire weather room shuddered slightly from the impact. Perfect misses. As expected from my Pokemon, Johan thought, feeling both impressed and resigned. The rest of the afternoon was spent on practice, with Dragonair finally managing to execute a proper thunder by the end. At the same time, the massive commotion attracted attention outside the training room, particularly from the Academy's staff. When Johan exited, he found Vice Principal Martin waiting for him. Vice Principal Martin, about the training room. Johan felt like a child caught red-handed. Don't worry about it, Martin said generously. But the principal wants to see you. The Academy really is wealthy. I guess I can train more freely in the future, Johan thought as he followed Martin. On the way, Martin explained, a trainer from the Galar region has arrived, apparently an old acquaintance of the principal. They're hoping to study at our academy. Wait, Johan interrupted. Galar? What's their name? After some thought, Martin replied, I think it's Phew. At least it's not the man from the ads. Night. Hoenn region, Rustboro City. Every time I head out, I come back feeling utterly drained, Johan sighed, walking toward a brightly lit cafe not far away. At least tomorrow, I can sleep in again, he added with a hint of relief. In contrast, Jengar's expression was entirely different, full of seriousness. Kaka. Tomorrow is the day to train hard. It hadn't forgotten that two of the most challenging gyms in Kanto were still waiting for them. Jengar was determined not to slack off or embarrass Johan. Ding-dong. As Johan pushed open the cafe door, a soft chime from a Chimecho-like bell rang out. Welcome. 3 familiar voices greeted him in unison. Wearing their waiter uniforms, Meowth, Jesse, and James hurried over. Johan-sensei. When they recognized their visitor, surprise gave way to delight. Here, these are for you, Johan said with a smile, handing out the gifts he'd brought for them. A spade for James, an apron for Jesse, a classic CD for Meowth, and a straw hat for Wobbuffet. Gifts? For us. Tears of gratitude welled up in their eyes as they hugged each other tightly. Our leader handles everything in the Hoenn branch on his own, yet he still thinks of bringing us gifts. It's just so touching. ×3. Honestly, despite all they'd been through, especially James, who ran away from a wealthy family and often had to go hungry, this was the first time anyone had given them presents. Even something so small meant the world to them. Wobbuffet saluted with tears streaming down its face. Johan chuckled. All right. Stop crying, you 3. Looking at the Team Rocket trio and Wobbuffet, he couldn't help but smile. For all their antics, the trio had genuinely good hearts. In the original story, though they frequently clashed with Ash and Pikachu, they were known to join forces against a common enemy when they saw something truly unjust. By the way, Johan began, tapping on the counter to get their attention, there's something I'd like to discuss with you all. Johan-sensei, just tell us what to do. We'll do our best, James declared earnestly, wiping away his tears. Yeah, want us to capture a Pokémon? We'll. Before Jesse could finish, Meowth and James clamped their hands over her mouth. Just say the word, Meow, Meowth said with a forced grin. Johan sighed, rubbing his forehead. Build me a Gundam. James, huh? Jesse, what's a Gundam? Meowth, we'll get it done, Meow. Wabba, Angle, degree. You're all so easily distracted. Johan chuckled, shaking his head. He then explained his idea to produce a show, outlining a rough plan. Me? Acting. Jessie shot up from her seat, ecstatic. Jessie had always dreamed of becoming a star. In her mind, the triumphant return of Jesselina was finally here. And you'll be the lead actress, Johan added nonchalantly. Meanwhile, he chose Meowth over a Persian for one critical role. While Meowth's small stature was less imposing, its personality and colorful backstory, especially its unrequited love, made it the perfect fit. The project, now officially titled Meowth and Piku, would star Meowth and Jessie, with James taking on the role of director. All 3 were visibly excited. It was clear this opportunity to star in a production resonated with them more than their usual antics running a cafe. Friday. Clear skies. After his brief stint in Kanto, Johan returned to his peaceful, laid-back routine in Rustboro City. At the Academy courtyard, Johan reclined lazily in a deck chair, basking in the warm sunlight, one hand stroking Vulpix's soft fur, while the other toyed with a Pokédex that Professor Oak had gifted him. Pokédex. Created personally by Professor Oak, this Pokédex contains a wealth of detailed Pokémon information. It also functions as a phone, gaming console, and navigation device. Trust me, you don't need this. Johan raised an eyebrow. The Pokédex's self-description amused him. Later that day, Johan's plans to enjoy a quiet afternoon were interrupted by an unexpected development. Galar region visitor incoming. At the principal's office, sounds of scuffling and crashing filled the air as Johan approached. Opening the door, he wasn't surprised to see the principal being gently massaged by his Pangoro. But what caught his attention was the dark-skinned girl standing nearby. With her gray hair tied back in a black and orange headband, a sleeveless outfit revealing her muscular frame and bare feet. The girl was unmistakably Bee, Galar's prodigy in martial arts. Before Johan could say a word, Bee noticed him. Her eyes lit up as she turned and bowed deeply. "Please teach me," she exclaimed. Johan blinked. "Teacher." But before he could respond, Bee leapt into a fighting stance, her eyes sharp as a blade. Johan suddenly felt very nervous. Wham! Bea's first attack was a roundhouse kick aimed squarely at him. Johan instinctively sidestepped. Her foot collided with the doorframe, leaving deep cracks. "Doesn't that hurt?" Johan winced. But Bea's eyes shone even brighter as she pressed forward, throwing a heavy punch. Realizing there was no way to talk her down, Johan closed his eyes and activated his aura powers. To her astonishment, Johan avoided her strike with seemingly effortless precision, keeping his calm composure. Bee froze. In Johan, she saw the aura of a true martial arts master, a presence reminiscent of her father's teacher, Mustard. Her respect for him deepened. But just as she prepared to unleash her most powerful move, Johan calmly said, "Want some sweets?" Bee stopped in her tracks. A soft blush spread across her face as she murmured, "See, can I?" At the cafe, watching Bea's hesitant first bite into a slice of cake, Johan relaxed. "How is it?" he asked. "Delicious," she whispered, her cheeks red. Johan leaned back, relieved. And thus, the storm was calmed, for now. "Johan sensei," Bee hesitated, her voice faltering as she ate her cake. Johan glanced at her. "Please, P, promise me you won't tell anyone about my love for sweets." Bea's cheeks flushed a deep red. Raised under her parents' rigorous genius training regime, Bee adhered strictly to etiquette. She displayed exceptional judgment and remained calm even in dangerous situations. But this upbringing came at a cost. Even though she was much younger than Steven and the others, the pressure of becoming a gym leader under her parents' strict guidance had unconsciously shackled her spirit. Her natural smile had long since disappeared. As Johan looked at Bea's serious expression, he sighed inwardly. It was only when she was enjoying desserts that her true self seemed to emerge, her genuine emotions, her sincere joy. "Of course," Johan replied with a warm smile. Thank you," Bee stammered, bowing slightly. Before long, she finished the large slice of cake. But after licking the last crumbs from her spoon, she stood abruptly. "Johan sensei, please have a Pokémon battle with me," Bee declared, bowing at a sharp 90 degrees angle. "No escape, huh?" Johan felt a headache coming on. Chew. Before he could respond, Tinkatuff shot up from its seat, hammer in hand, its eyes gleaming with determination. There were still two of Kanto's toughest gyms left to challenge. It had to seize every opportunity to grow stronger. Bee was clearly a seasoned fighter, a perfect sparring partner to test out the martial arts techniques Tinkatuff had learned from Bruno's training notes. "You want a battle?" Johan asked, raising an eyebrow at Tinkatuff. "Chew! Chew!" Tinkatuff nodded enthusiastically, gripping its hammer tightly. Seeing Tinkatuff's readiness, Bee felt her fighting spirit ignite as well. "Johan sensei, let's battle," Bee insisted, her hands clenched into fists. "Chew!" Tinkatuff echoed, equally determined. Behind a cafe, an open field, Johan and Bee stood on opposite sides of a small, grassy clearing. A cool breeze stirred the leaves, rippling across a nearby lake as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The scene felt oddly cinematic, as if it were a classic duel at sunset. "Why does this feel like a movie fight?" Johan rubbed his temples. "Go ma camp." Bea's eyes sharpened as she tossed her pokeball. Out came a brawny, humanoid Pokémon with 4 muscular arms and blue-gray skin. Macamp, the epitome of fighting-type strength. Macamp flexed its arms, striking an intimidating pose, before reaching down to its belt and pulling out a black belt to tie around its forehead. Black belt, a headband that boosts the power of fighting-type moves. "Put on, and you'll be a martial arts master." The Pokédex's commentary popped into Johan's mind, and he couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. "Pokédex, you're getting way too enthusiastic lately." "Chew." Tinkatuff tilted its head at the sight, then pulled out a power band of its own, tying it snugly around its head with a confident flourish. Seeing this, BEA's eyes sparkled. This Tinkatuff, it's got spirit. Meanwhile, behind a nearby tree, the Team Rocket Trio and Wobbuffet peeked out at the battlefield. "Who's that girl?" Jessie asked curiously. "I think. Her name's B," James replied hesitantly. "She's challenging Johan Sensei, Meow." Meowth added. Wobbuffet saluted, exclaiming, "Victory! Give it your all, Macamp." B commanded, her tone steady. "Matcha!" Macamp bellowed, spreading its 4 arms wide as it grinned fiercely. "Chew!" Tinkatuff stared at Machamp's wide stance, pondering. Small hammer or big hammer? After a moment's deliberation, it decided, big hammer feels safer. A faint blue aura shimmered around Johan as he activated his aura powers, his calm voice resonating in Tinkatuff's mind. "Tinkatuff, start with Sword's Dance." "Chew!" Tinkatuff slammed its hammer into the ground, sending a faint tremor through the field. Its body glowed with a red energy, accompanied by a low, metallic hum. "Wait, the match has already started?" James exclaimed from his hiding spot. B blinked, momentarily stunned. "B," Johan said with a straight face, "if you're not prepared to play defensively, then seizing the initiative is the first step to victory. It's a friendly match. No referee. Who cares if I go first?" B snapped back to attention, her expression firm. "I see. Thank you for the lesson, Johan Sensei." To her, this was a valuable demonstration. After all, in the wild, opponents wouldn't follow any formal rules. Macamp, use Dynamic Punch. Macamp lunged forward with remarkable speed, its fists glowing with crimson energy. Its no-guard ability ensured perfect accuracy, while Dynamic Punch guaranteed confusion upon landing. This classic no-guard Dynamic Punch strategy was both feared and admired in the fighting-type community. But, as fast as Macamp was, Johan's aura-enhanced perception allowed him to track its every movement. Clang! Machamp's powerful fist struck Tinkatuff's hammer, sending a shockwave through the air. Tinkatuff responded by subtly dragging its hammer downward, dissipating the force of the blow, a technique it had learned from Bruno's notes. Sometimes, against stronger foes, brute force wasn't the answer. Subtle redirection could be far more effective. BEA's eyes widened in surprise. She had never considered such a tactic before. Meanwhile, Macamp unleashed a flurry of punches, hammering away at Tinkatuff's weapon. The repeated impacts left faint dents in the hammer surface. Is it refining its hammer using Machamp's attacks? Johan grimaced at the realization. How much will it cost to repair that thing? Tinkatuff now. Use Ice Hammer, Johan shouted. Tinkatuff seized an opening in Machamp's assault, swinging its hammer in a wide arc. A layer of frost spread across the hammerhead as it struck Macamp squarely in the chest. Matcha! The blow sent Macamp hurtling backward, crashing into the ground with enough force to leave a sizable crater. Not bad, B muttered, her admiration for Tinkatuff growing. Macamp, use close combat, she ordered, clenching her fists. Macamp roared, shattering its gold-trimmed power save belt. Unrestrained, its full strength was unleashed, its muscles bulging with raw power. Is it going full berserk mode? Johan felt a chill. Don't let close in. Tinkatuff, throw your hammer. Tinkatuff's eyes gleamed mischievously. Chew! It hurled the frozen hammer with all its might. Wham! The hammer slammed into Machamp's face, sending it staggering backward. Seizing the moment, Tinkatuff dashed forward to retrieve the hammer, which was now glowing with a soft pink hue. A faint aura of sparkling stars surrounded it. Wait, is that play rough? Johan blinked. Chew! With a cheeky grin, Tinkatuff swung the hammer one last time, creating a small explosion of stardust and sending Macamp crashing to the ground. When the dust settled, Macamp was out cold. I lost, he said solemnly, bowing deeply. She approached Johan and dropped to her knees, pleading earnestly. Please teach me, Johan Sensei. Johan rubbed his temples, utterly exasperated. Teach her what? My skills are just borrowed moves. After a long pause, he sighed and said, sometimes you're too focused on formality. You should try unrestricted combat. Unrestricted combat. BEA's eyes lit up with curiosity. Seeing her excitement, Johan's lips twitched. Somewhere in the future. Go B. With a battle cry, B took down her opponent using her own unique, chaotic fighting style. What have I unleashed upon the world? Johan wondered grimly. Maybe I should have her work at the cafe for a while first, he muttered, imagining the chaos she could bring. Galar region, olive armor. Yo, little Dan, an elderly man in a green tracksuit, topped with a vivid black and green striped cap, put down his phone after dialing a number. This was none other than Mustard, the undefeated former champion of the Galar region for 18 consecutive years. The person on the other end of the call was his most esteemed student, Leon. Master! Leon's familiar yet exasperated voice came through, accompanied by some background noise. Busy are we, little Dan? Mustard asked cheerfully, setting down his game controller with a chuckle. Yes, I'm in the middle of shooting an ad. Old me wants to ask you about someone, Mustard said, casually controlling his in-game character to pummel his opponents into submission with one hand. Someone, you know Johan? Johan? Oh, you mean Johan Sensei? Leon's tone carried a hint of surprise. Looks like you've heard of him. Leon waved off a few staff members from Macrocosmos, finding a quieter spot to continue the conversation. Well, I wouldn't say I know him personally, but I've seen his battle videos. He's an incredible tactical master. Tactical master? Mustard's face lit up with curiosity. Why do you ask, Master? An old friend of mine said this little Johan is some impressive martial arts master and asked if I could help train him. Martial arts master? Leon was stunned. From what he knew, Johan was a Pokémon psychologist and a brilliant tactician with some experience as a researcher. But now someone's claiming he's also a martial arts master? Little Dan, Mustard continued. Aren't you planning a trip to Kanto soon? Are you asking me to visit Johan Sensei? No, I need you to grab me a few newly released games. Pikachu Run, Machamp's Muscle Parade, and Leon. Haha, just kidding, Mustard quickly added, realizing his mistake. On a more serious note, could you also drop by Hoenn to visit an old friend of mine? And if you meet little Johan, invite him to visit the Isle of Armor sometime. Master, can you lead with the important stuff next time? Leon sighed, rubbing his temples. That was the important part, Mustard pouted. For him, gaming had long since taken precedence over nearly everything else. Fine, I understand. Even if you hadn't asked, I was planning to pay Johan Sensei a visit eventually, Leon admitted. Challenging skilled trainers worldwide was one of his goals. The Galar region's Pokémon League had been established relatively recently, and the region itself was still developing. Compared to others, it lagged behind in many aspects. Leon's dream was to make Galar a stronger and more recognized region. Good, Mustard said, nodding. Anything else, Master? Mustard's eyes gleamed mischievously. How are things between you and Sonia? Things are great. She still can't beat me in a battle, haha. Leon replied proudly, laughing heartily. Mustard rolled his eyes and hung up. This kid, so dense, totally unlike old me. Back at the cafe. Thud, thud, thud. From the kitchen came the sound of loud thumps and crashing. No, not like that. You're kneading it wrong, came James' panicked shout. Crack. The familiar sound of a cutting board snapping in two echoed through the cafe. Sipping his coffee in the courtyard, Johan glanced at the rippling surface of his cup before exchanging a resigned look with the Vulpix in his lap. How many cutting boards does this make now? Be it stayed on at the cafe temporarily. Dressed in a server's uniform, she spent her free time learning how to make desserts and coffee from James. Naturally, she gravitated more toward desserts. At first, Bea hadn't understood why Johan had arranged this. Now, she was beginning to get it. Through tasks like kneading dough, she was learning to control her immense strength and develop finesse. Sorry, Bea's voice, full of guilt, echoed from the kitchen. It's okay, Miss B. Let's try again. James reassured her, though his voice quivered with thinly veiled exhaustion. Watching from the courtyard, Johan took another sip of coffee and smiled. James truly has the patience of a saint. Despite repeatedly breaking things, James never seemed to lose his temper. Then again, this was the same James who had relentlessly pursued Pikachu alongside Jessie and Meowth for years without giving up. Perseverance was practically his defining trait. What surprised Johan more was how much BEA's demeanor had improved in just a few days. Not only did she smile while eating sweets, but she now smiled genuinely while making them too. She's still just a kid. Kids should laugh more. It suits them, Johan mused aloud. Ooh, Vulpix wagged its tails in agreement. Just then, Jengar phased through the wall behind Johan. Kaka, it asked, tilting its head. Is it really okay for her to keep breaking cutting boards like this? Aren't they expensive? Johan chuckled. What do you think costs more, an employee's wages or a few cutting boards? Understanding dawned on Jengar's face as it gave Johan a thumbs up. Johan-sensei always finds a way to come out ahead. At that moment, Johan's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The screen displayed the name, Matori. Answering, Johan immediately heard her crisp and efficient voice. Johan-sensei, everything has been arranged. As per your suggestion, Spike Mutt has selected a particularly, simple-minded Granbull for the role. Good. Johan nodded. Additionally, Malville TV and Rustboro TV have been contacted and are on board. Everything is set to go. Johan couldn't help but marvel at Matori's efficiency. Team Rocket truly had no shortage of talent. Excellent. Let's start production as soon as possible. Understood, Matori replied, her tone brimming with energy. After a pause, she added, Johan-sensei, please don't overwork yourself. Johan blinked at the unexpected concern, then smiled. I'll be careful. Thanks, Matori. The other end of the line fell silent for a moment before Matori softly replied, Why, you're welcome. After the call, Johan's phone buzzed again, this time from an unexpected caller, Professor Sycamore. Answering, Johan heard the Kalos professor's deep, charismatic voice. Johan-sensei. I hope I'm not interrupting you. Not all, Professor. What's the matter? After a bit of polite small talk, Sycamore got to the point. I've hit a roadblock in one of my studies. After some thought, I realized I could use your expertise as a Pokémon psychologist. You're uniquely skilled in analyzing and fostering bonds between trainers and their Pokémon. I'll help however I can. What's the issue? Have you heard of Mega Evolution? Somewhat. I know a little about it, Johan replied. The Kalos region was believed to be the birthplace of Pokémon Mega Evolution, with places like Shalar City and its Shalar Gym as key sites of the phenomenon. Professor Sycamore, an expert in the field, had already made significant progress in researching Mega Evolution, with several of his papers published on the Pokémon League's researcher forums. That's great news. Sycamore's excitement was evident as he continued explaining. Mega Evolution, also called Super Evolution, allows certain Pokémon to transcend their natural limitations and temporarily evolve further, gaining immense power in the process. However, this extraordinary transformation requires two critical items. A Mega Stone unique to the Pokémon species, a keystone held by the trainer. Johan himself possessed a Jengarite, the Mega Stone specific to Jengar. Theoretically, all he needed now was a keystone, and he could enable his mischievous purple partner to Mega Evolve. But it wasn't that simple. Mega Evolution also demanded a deep emotional bond and trust between the trainer and the Pokémon. This vague yet critical concept of bond was the reason Sycamore sought Johan's expertise. As one of the few researchers exploring trainer-Pokémon relationships as a serious field of study, Johan was well known for his work in this area. Emotions are difficult to quantify, Johan thought. Most researchers avoided this topic, as it lacked tangible metrics or data points. However, as a Pokémon psychologist, Johan's work focused precisely on such abstract concepts, which gave him unique insight into the matter. Sycamore proposed that Johan visit Kalos to assist with furthering Mega Evolution research. In return, he offered compensation, not just as payment, but as research funding. Professor, there's no need to discuss payment, Johan said modestly. I'd be happy to contribute to the Pokémon world in any way I can. After the call ended, Johan leaned back in thought, his gaze falling on Gengar. Among his Pokémon, only Gengar currently had the potential to Mega Evolve. Why do I feel uneasy about this? Johan murmured. Mega Evolution drained significant mental and physical energy from both trainer and Pokémon. Recovery often couldn't be expedited even at Pokémon centers. In Gengar's case, Johan wasn't just worried about the strain. He knew his mischievous purple partner too well. If Gengar learned about Mega Evolution, it would likely obsess over mastering it in no time, potentially wreaking havoc in the process. Johan pictured the aftermath: wild experiments, frantic apologies, and being summoned for stern tea sessions with Officer Jenny. Or worse, Johan muttered, Gengar might even figure out how to Mega Evolve on its own to avoid getting caught by me. That thought sent a shiver down his spine. For now, he took solace in the fact that he only possessed Gengarite. Without a keystone, the risk was contained, relatively speaking. Steven probably has a collection of Megastones and Keystones lying around without knowing their purpose, Johan mused. Given Steven's personality, it wouldn't be surprising if he casually gifted Johan a full Mega Evolution set. After all, this was the same Steven who handed over Septolite worth a small fortune to a rookie trainer in the Hoenn region, just because he could. Johan shook his head, chuckling at the thought. As a teacher, I can't accept extravagant gifts from students. I'll just have to earn it myself. If Mega Evolution training required additional resources, then Johan would need to earn more Poke Dollars. Thankfully, the Meowth and Piku TV series was shaping up to be a lucrative venture. With its potential success, Johan could expect a steady income stream. Pair that with the cafe's growing popularity, and his financial worries might soon be over. Work comes first, Johan said with a grin, quickly deciding to visit Kanto next. Under the night sky, Johan glanced at the oversized bathtub that once comfortably housed his Dragonair. Now a fully evolved Dragonair, the tub seemed woefully inadequate. When it becomes a Dragonite, Johan muttered, his gaze shifting to the ceiling. Even a room height will be a problem. Meanwhile, Gengar hung upside down from the ceiling, sparks of blue electricity crackling between its fingers. No practicing thunder indoors. Johan barked. Ka-ka. Gengar sheepishly scratched its head before floating outside to spar with Tinkatuff under the moonlight. Johan settled back into his seat, flipping through some light reading. The next morning in Kanto's Viridian City, Gengar made a dramatic exit from the production set. Waving goodbye to Team Rocket's trio and Wobbuffet, it pulled out a shrunken toxic orb and began licking it like a piece of candy. Johan's eye twitched at the sight. The orb, once the size of a fist, had been licked down to a mere bead. Toxic orbs aren't consumable. Johan scolded internally. I'll have to buy another one now. The thought of spending more money on Gengar's antics made his heart ache. When Johan arrived at the Viridian Gym, the entrance was packed with teenagers brimming with energy. Each carried their Pokémon, ready to prove their worth. What's this about? Johan asked Mattori, who had accompanied him. Giovanni is looking for an exceptional trainer, Mattori replied, her tone betraying nothing. A champion to defeat Team Rocket, huh? Johan thought, his expression complicated. He could already imagine the result. Giovanni, you have no idea what kind of person you're about to choose. Led by Mattori, Johan entered a secure room deep within the gym. Inside was his newest patient, a Porygon 2. The upgraded digital Pokémon hovered near the walls, seemingly engrossed in inscribing cryptic messages all over the room. Ghosts, dreams, self-awareness, meaning is meaning. The writing covered every surface, including the ceiling. Johan's lips twitched into a wry smile. Looks like someone's been hanging out with Mewtwo. He called out, Porygon 2. The digital Pokémon paused, swiveling its round head to stare blankly at Johan. Let's talk, Johan began, keeping his tone calm. Porygon 2's blank eyes betrayed a hint of curiosity. How about some quick questions? Johan continued, waiting for a reaction. The virtual Pokémon nodded, barely perceptible, but enough. Here's the first. If you're driving and must choose between hitting a person or a cat, which would you hit? Without hesitation, Porygon 2's screen displayed the answer. Cat. No. Johan corrected gently. You hit the brakes. Porygon 2 froze. Its digital eyes blinked, processing the unexpected response. Johan smirked and pressed on. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Chicken, came the immediate response. Which year's chicken? Egg. Johan chuckled inwardly. It started to question itself. After a rapid-fire series of paradoxical questions, Johan ended with a simple yet profound query. Who are you? The room fell silent save for the faint hum of Porygon 2's processing circuits. Finally, with a soft thud, the digital Pokémon slumped to the floor. Johan-sensei, is it okay? Matori's voice trembled from the intercom. Johan stood, brushing off his hands. It's fine, he assured her. We're done here. Porygon 2 hasn't realized it has evolved yet. Rocket Team may have noticed something, but they haven't officially classified or named this form yet. Johan stroked his chin as he analyzed the situation, looking at the crashed Porygon 2. Normally, Porygon would need to be equipped with a special upgrade item, the Upgrade, to evolve. Upon evolving into Porygon 2, the Pokémon is equipped with AI capabilities, allowing it to learn and grow independently. Over time, it can break free from its programmed boundaries and act autonomously, becoming a true Pokémon with self-awareness. Porygon, while categorized as a Pokémon, is essentially just a tool, akin to a computer, lacking much in the way of emotions or self-awareness. Yet now, Rocket Team had clearly not developed an upgrade. So how had Porygon evolved? Judging by its behavior, could it have absorbed too much psychological and philosophical knowledge while working alongside Mewtwo? Johan muttered, does this mean the data from my conversations with Mewtwo could potentially be turned into a prototype of the upgrade? His eyes lit up slightly. Rocket Team owes me royalties for this. Wait a second. Johan's expression turned peculiar. If I keep questioning Porygon 2 to the point of overloading its logic circuits, could I inadvertently create a dubious disc as well? The dubious disc is the key item used to evolve Porygon 2 into Porygon Z. Although, that probably wouldn't matter much. Porygon isn't exactly a widely used or distributed Pokémon. Even if the upgrade and dubious disc were developed, how much profit could really be made? Walking out of the specially designed room, Johan was met by Matori, who approached him immediately. Johan-sensei, is it resolved? She had been monitoring the entire treatment process through the room's surveillance system. To be honest, even though she wasn't the patient, Matori was still left feeling a little dazed after hearing Johan's seemingly random and disjointed rapid-fire questions. More or less, Johan waved it off. If all goes well, Porygon 2 should recover in a couple of days. If symptoms persist, just contact me again. Today's session had already identified the root of Porygon 2's condition. Any follow-ups could likely be handled remotely. Porygon 2? Matori blinked in confusion. By the way, where's Gengar? Johan asked. When he exited the room, he noticed Gengar and the others were nowhere to be seen. A foreboding sense began creeping into his mind. Oh, it said I wanted to watch some gym battles, Matori replied. That's a relief. Johan exhaled quietly. However, stepping out of the side entrance, he saw Gengar wasn't off causing trouble or doing something reckless. Instead, it was standing still, staring blankly in a specific direction. Even Johan was caught off guard. What's wrong? He waved his hand in front of Gengar's face, snapping it out of its trance. Kaka. Kaka. Gengar gestured toward a specific direction, its expression uncharacteristically serious. It feels like something is calling me over there. Johan followed Gengar's pointed finger to see a towering mountain in the distance. Calling to Gengar? Johan furrowed his brow. Gengar had visited Vermilion Gym before. Why hadn't it felt this call last time? Kaka, I want to go check it out. Seeing how eager Gengar was, Johan nodded. All right, let's go take a look. If Gengar was this insistent, ignoring it didn't feel like an option. Matori, let Giovanni know I have some business to attend to and won't be able to meet with him this time, Johan told her. Watching Johan and Gengar disappear into the distance, Matori looked baffled. Dra, The serpentine Dragonair flew gracefully in the sky, its white ear-like fins flapping rhythmically with every glide. On its back, Johan clung tightly, his face pale and teeth gritted. This was his first attempt at riding Dragonair. But truth be told, Johan hoped it would also be his last. At least not without a proper saddle. Dragonair's body was far too smooth. If not for Johan's decent upper body strength, he would have already fallen off. Kaka. Hovering nearby, Jengar cackled at Johan's misfortune, finding his struggles endlessly amusing. Johan shot a glare. If you keep laughing, I'm moving into Professor Oak's lab and staying there for a whole week. Kaka. Jengar immediately froze, its laughter dying in its throat. With a smug grin, Johan thought, "Found your weakness, huh? You purple troublemaker?" Dragonair trilled happily, its wings flaring as it began descending toward a lakeside clearing. "Slow down. Take it slow." Johan's face turned green. Below, on the opposite side of the lake, a square-faced man in a yellow t-shirt crouched by the water, gathering flat stones. He glanced up at the descending Dragonair and Jengar, his face showing mild surprise. Still, he didn't seem overly concerned. Camping and training out in the wilderness weren't uncommon. Johan, however, didn't have the luxury to care about anything else. The moment his feet hit solid ground, he nearly collapsed to his knees in relief. So this is what standing firmly on land feels like. Is this the essence of Giovanni's Earth Mastery? Kaka. Now that they had arrived, Jengar grew visibly more excited. It stared intently at what seemed like a completely ordinary cliffside, as if sensing something hidden within. Without hesitation, Jengar clenched its fist, dark energy swirling around it, and launched a powerful shadow punch straight at the rock wall. Having just steadied himself, Johan looked up to see what Jengar was targeting, his expression shifting instantly. Wait! Boom! Before he could stop it, Jengar's punch connected, shattering the rock face. Behind it, an ancient altar revealed itself, its surface cluttered with mysterious golden objects adorned with red patterns. At the altar's center was a weathered stone tablet and a peculiar contraption of 3 black orbs, 2 large, 1 small, that radiated an ominous aura. Kaka. Seeing the black orbs, Jengar's eyes gleamed as it reached out toward them. Johan grabbed its hand just in time. Wait, Jengar! Kaka. Jengar paused, turning to Johan in confusion. Johan's expression had turned grim. Of course, the Viridian Forest had to hide this kind of nightmare. This wasn't just any altar. It was the very site that, according to legends, was used to seal away the titanic forms of the ancient Pokémon, Giant Jengar, Giant Alakazam, and Giant Jigglypuff. And now, here they were, standing right in the middle of it. Pallet Town. In his garden, Professor Oak was watering his plants when he glanced at the towering mountain in the distance. Dark clouds were gathering ominously over its peak. This is... Professor Oak paused, his face showing mild confusion. Bulba. Covered in water, a very annoyed Bulbasaur lashed out with its vines, flinging Professor Oak several feet away with a powerful push. Thud! The professor tumbled through the air in an ungraceful arc before hitting the ground. Dusting himself off, he muttered, "This feels oddly reminiscent of Kikuko's work." Meanwhile, on the other side of the lake, martial artist Flint stared at the massive form of Giant Jengar. The oppressive atmosphere created by Giant Jengar weighed heavily on him, its sheer size and the storm clouds swirling above making the scene otherworldly. Wait a minute, Flint suddenly remembered. The spot where this behemoth appeared was exactly where the traveler on Dragonair had landed earlier. From his angle, Flint hadn't noticed the exchange between Giant Jengar and Jengar, nor had he seen their peculiar conversation. That person could be in danger. Flint clenched his jaw and scanned the area, trying to find the fastest path across the lake. But before he could act, he noticed something strange. The massive Jengar had started fighting a much smaller Jengar. Even more baffling, the smaller Jengar managed to briefly go toe-to-toe with the giant. Flint slowed his pace, incredulous at what he was seeing. The smaller Jengar was clearly outmatched in size and strength, yet it had somehow held its own. Before long, the smaller Jengar retreated, returning to its trainer. "All settled?" Johan asked, his tone casual despite the tension. Jengar scratched its head and muttered sheepishly, "Caca." I didn't understand a word it said. "What? You didn't understand a word, yet you spent all that time having a nonsensical chat with it?" Johan didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this revelation. "Oh!" Vulpix suddenly stiffened, its 6 snowy tails bristling as it growled a warning. Johan turned to see giant Jengar clasp its massive hands together, a swirling orb of pure darkness forming rapidly between its palms. His expression darkened. "Jengar, caca." Immediately understanding, Jengar's body became enveloped in dark mist. With surprising speed, it conjured its own shadow ball, its small hands moving rapidly to form a sphere almost as large as itself. For all its diminutive stature, Jengar's shadow ball was shockingly comparable in size to the one giant Jengar had created. These ancient Pokémon sure do like oversized attacks. Johan mused. Boom! The 2 shadow balls collided midair, triggering a deafening explosion that sent shockwaves rippling across the area. The nearby lake surged, waves crashing against the shore as Johan quickly took charge. Vulpix, Aurora Veil. Dragonair, Hydro Pump. Tinkatuff, Swords Dance. Now, caca. Giant Jengar blinked in surprise as its smaller counterpart successfully neutralized its attack. In that fleeting moment, Vulpix summoned a shimmering Aurora Veil of dazzling frost, layering it for extra protection. The lake's surface froze over in patches, and an icy wind swept through the area. Guess all that practice with Vulpix's Aurora Veil was worth it, Johan thought. Dragonair followed up with a powerful hydro pump, the water jet slamming into giant Jengar's torso. This time, the attack didn't even need Dragonair's usual lucky aim. With a target this enormous, it was impossible to miss. Though visibly unhurt, the hit seemed to enrage giant Jengar even further. Its expression twisted in anger, and its movements became more erratic. Worse still, the fact that the smaller Jengar's shadow ball had matched its own only fueled its frustration. Kakah! With an earth-shaking roar, giant Jengar raised its hands toward the swirling black clouds above. The darkened sky churned and responded to its summons, streams of shadowy lightning streaking down toward the behemoth. From these clouds, it began forming an even larger shadow ball, crackling with arcs of black lightning. Ka-ka-ka. Jengar froze, staring at the colossal attack in stunned silence. It can do that. Looking down at its hands, Jengar hesitated for only a moment before breaking into a mischievous grin. It too began to draw energy from the clouds, mimicking giant Jengar's movements. Amazingly, the black clouds above responded to Jengar as well, streaming tendrils of shadowy energy down toward its much smaller frame. Giant Jengar. Even the ancient behemoth seemed momentarily baffled. What the heck, Jengar? You're copying moves now, Johan exclaimed, slack-jawed. Caca. And just like that, Jengar's own oversized shadow ball was ready, its dark energy pulsing ominously. For a brief moment, Johan couldn't help but think it resembled a tiny spirit bomb. Boom! The 2 massive shadow balls collided once more, creating an even larger explosion that sent shockwaves radiating outward. Chew! Dragonair and Tinkatuff worked together to stabilize their footing as Vulpix reinforced the Aurora Veil. The dust settled, revealing giant Jengar standing unscathed. In contrast, Jengar was panting heavily, its usually vibrant color looking pale. It had clearly overexerted itself. Johan frowned. This isn't working. Vulpix's barriers won't last forever, and giant Jengar's stamina is on a whole other level. That left only one option. Wake up, giant Alakazam. But as Johan glanced back at the altar, the golden eye of Alakazam and golden spoon remained stubbornly inert. Guess we'll have to try something else. A sudden thought struck him. Jengar, Johan began, an almost mischievous glint in his eye. Why don't you introduce your virtual pet to your relative over there? Ka. Jengar blinked, confused by the bizarre suggestion. What's my electronic pet gonna do? Still, it obediently fished out its phone, its ghostly fingers quickly swiping across the screen. A holographic display sprang to life, revealing a pixelated, crimson-eyed figure, Rotom OS. Giant Jengar froze mid-attack, its crimson eyes locking onto the screen. Its expression shifted, a flicker of recognition flashing across its massive face. Ka. Jengar tilted its head, baffled. What's so interesting about this thing? But Johan seized the moment, reaching out with his aura to amplify Jengar's next move. Put it to sleep, Johan commanded softly. Jengar grinned wickedly, raising its hands as its eyes began to glow faintly. Tame this wild beast. Giant Jengar shuddered. Its movement slowed, the dark clouds above dissipating as its colossal form began to shrink. Johan smiled. Good night, old friend. As giant Jengar finally vanished, the black orb it was linked to fell to the ground with a hollow thud. Jengar, meanwhile, was busy stuffing a massive piece of spell tag, or something that resembled it, into its mouth. Jengar! Johan's voice rose in exasperation. Caught red-handed, Jengar froze, then grinned sheepishly. This oversized tag would probably attract more ghost Pokémon than Johan cared to deal with. But at least for now, the immediate threat had passed. From across the lake, Flint stood motionless, his jaw slack. Did they just put that thing to sleep? His mind reeled as he tried to process what he'd just witnessed. And who even is that guy? You're Johan, the teacher. Flint scrutinized Johan's features carefully before recognition dawned upon him. Johan looked puzzled, but Flint grinned. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Flint, the Pewter Gym leader. My son, Brock, mentioned you to me once. The Pewter Gym leader? Johan's expression remained neutral, but his Pokémon, Jengar and the rest of his team, immediately perked up. Their eyes gleamed with a mixture of mischief and anticipation as they fixated on Flint like predators spotting prey. One of the last two gym leaders in the Kanto region. To Jengar and company, Flint wasn't just Flint. He was a walking 6 million poke dollars. Flint, feeling the weight of their intense gazes, Flint's back suddenly grew cold. What's going on here? Johan quickly stepped in front of his team, blocking their line of sight. He diverted Flint's attention, saying with a smile, Flint, your reputation precedes you. Ha ha! Flint scratched the back of his head, laughing loudly. You flatter me, Johan. Johan nodded seriously. Father to 10 children, raising them while contributing so much to the Pokémon League. Truly admirable. Flint froze mid-laugh, visibly startled by Johan's remark. Everyone knew Flint's claim to fame. Pokémon World's top breeder of humans. His eldest son, Brock, was the judge of all Pokémon. As for his younger sons, Jiro, Saburo, Goro, they didn't even merit individual names. Johan had often wondered if Flint carried some kind of super breeder gene. How else could he explain such prolific parenting? Flint wasn't just the breeder of men. His wife, Miyuki, deserved that title more. If anything, Flint was merely the planter of seeds. As for Brock's obsession with women, that was almost certainly an inherited trait. Brushing aside the awkward praise, Flint waved his hand modestly. You could do it too, Johan. Johan, 10 kids? If every one of them wanted to become a trainer, the costs alone, no wonder Brock was such a jack of all trades. Besides being a trainer and breeder, he seemed to have picked up every odd skill just to help keep the family afloat. Anyway, what brings you here, Flint? Johan asked, steering the conversation elsewhere. He'd come to this remote mountain because of Jengar, but why was Flint here? Shouldn't he be running the Pewter Gym? At Johan's question, Flint straightened his posture and responded solemnly. I'm here to train. Johan raised an eyebrow, skeptical. As a fellow man, Johan's intuition told him the real reason probably involved Flint's wife, Miyuki. It was no secret. Flint was notoriously henpecked. He adored Miyuki, but couldn't deny that he was no match for her, both figuratively and literally. As a rock-type specialist, Flint was utterly countered by Miyuki's water-type expertise. However, seeing Johan's dubious expression, Flint quickly added another explanation. To be honest, running gym battles is really expensive. Going on a training journey lets me close the gym for a while. It saves on repair costs. Johan was momentarily taken aback before realization dawned. Gym battles were, indeed, costly, especially for rock, ground, or steel-type gyms, where the facilities needed frequent repairs. Combine that with Flint's responsibility of raising 10 children, and it all added up. Life's not easy, Johan murmured, sympathetic. Flint turned his head away, tilting it skyward as he discreetly wiped at his eyes. Finally, someone understands me. By the way, Flint said, his tone lightening, what was that massive Jengar all about earlier? Oh, just an ancient Pokémon, Johan replied nonchalantly. I've already reported it to Officer Jenny. He gave Flint a brief rundown of the events, but the gym leader seemed fixated on only one detail, Officer Jenny. In a flash, Flint darted to the lakeshore. Cupping water in his hands, he slicked back his hair, turned to Johan with a dazzling smile, and asked, How do I look, Johan? Johan, if you hadn't said anything, I'd have mistaken you for Wallace. Not bad, Johan deadpanned. Really? Flint eagerly checked his reflection in the water. But just as he leaned closer, a mischievous Jengar emerged silently from the lake, its wide, toothy grin mere inches from Flint's face. For 3 whole seconds, Flint and Jengar locked eyes. Flint, the gym leader, leapt nearly 3 meters into the air, his face pale as a ghost. No matter how tough a man is, everyone's got something they're scared of. The sound of a helicopter approaching interrupted their banter. Within moments, Officer Jenny arrived with 2 police officers and a pair of archaeologists in tow. Upon spotting her, Flint immediately perked up. With a theatrical flourish, he knelt on one knee before Jenny, his face radiating admiration. Officer Jenny, I'm Flint of Pewter. Jenny didn't even glance his way. Instead, she briskly walked past him and approached Johan with bright eyes and a rosy complexion. Professor Johan, she exclaimed, practically glowing like a fangirl meeting her idol. Crack! Flint froze mid-motion, his hopes dashed. She ignored me. Thanks to Johan's prominence among the Officer Jenny clan, owing to his work on the Anti-Theft Brigade, initiative, and occasional online lectures, his reputation within their ranks was stellar. Add to that Johan's striking looks, rivaling even the likes of Stephen Stone, and it wasn't hard to see why Jenny was starstruck. Johan greeted her with a polite smile. Thank you for coming, Officer Jenny. It's no trouble at all. This is my duty, Jenny replied earnestly. After Johan explained the situation, he emphasized the importance of safeguarding the ancient Pokémon artifacts. If possible, he suggested, store them alongside the bell from the altar. That bell contains the sleeping giant Jigglypuff. Should the giant Jengar or Alakazam act up again, Jigglypuff can pacify them. Jenny nodded, promising to report Johan's contributions to the League for appropriate recognition. Johan waved her off modestly. It's not about the rewards. I'm just curious to see what the League is willing to do with this much ancient power. Truthfully, while the ancient Pokémon were powerful, they weren't exactly useful. Communication with them was virtually impossible, and taming them seemed out of reach. Besides, Johan added dryly, I already have my hands full with one Jengar. I can't imagine taking care of a giant one. As Jenny's team departed with the artifacts, she turned back with a smile. Say hi to your cousin in Rustboro for me, Professor Johan. Watching the helicopter disappear into the distance, Johan sighed. Professor Johan. Flint's sudden shout startled him. Thud! Flint dropped to his knees before Johan. Flint, what are you doing? I slipped, Flint mumbled, quickly rising and brushing himself off. Then, with uncharacteristic solemnity, he declared, Johan, please teach me. No, teach my friend. Teach what? Leaning in conspiratorially, Flint whispered, How do you get beautiful women to approach you so easily? Johan shot him a sidelong glare. Excuse me, sir. Aren't you married? With a resigned sigh, Johan replied, That's not something you can learn, Flint. Flint's expression hardened. My My friend can endure hardship. After a moment's thought, Johan nodded slowly. Well, to start, yes. Flint leaned in eagerly. You need a very handsome face. Flint, Sigma, LLL. As the two men sat by the lake chatting, Johan couldn't help but notice how Flint, despite his easygoing demeanor, carried the weight of his responsibilities. For all his flaws, Flint deeply loved his children. He just didn't always show it the right way. Johan listened patiently as Flint vented about his struggles, nodding empathetically. Thank you for listening, Johan, Flint said sincerely. Johan shrugged. Every family has its challenges. At that moment, Jengar floated back, gleefully presenting Johan with a sherry berry. Accepting it without hesitation, Johan took a bite, much to Flint's astonishment. Johan, your bond with your Pokémon is truly admirable, Flint said with genuine admiration. Johan smiled faintly. We've been through a lot together. Standing abruptly, Flint clenched his fists. Johan, how about a battle? I hear you're aiming for the Indigo League. My Pewter Gym badge might come in handy for you. Think of it as my thanks for today. Wait, isn't a badge supposed to be earned through official means? Johan sighed internally. Once again, it seemed Erica had been spreading his plans around. A battle? Johan turned to his Pokémon. His team immediately froze, ears perked up in unison. All right, Johan said slowly. He hadn't planned to challenge a gym today. After all, the Indigo League wasn't starting yet, and he hadn't assembled a full team of 6 Pokémon. But since the opportunity presented itself, it was going to happen sooner or later. Flint smiled and moved to the opposite side of the clearing, his expression taking on the resolve of solid rock. As a rock-type trainer, he wasn't stubborn like the stones he commanded, but he embodied their unyielding strength and determination. Let's battle, Flint called, gripping a Pokeball. At this point, Johan instinctively reached for a dual disc to start laying down cards. But honestly, when trainers locked eyes, it was much like card duelists. There was no avoiding a showdown. Wait, Johan's gaze grew skeptical. Flint, you're not challenging me because I'm more popular than you, are you? Flint froze, his square face betraying a hint of embarrassment as he scratched his head. What? Of course not. Ha ha. After all, I'm the proud father of 10 kids. He threw the Pokeball. Boom. From the burst of light, a towering onyx materialized, its massive body composed entirely of jagged rocks. Onyx, the rock snake Pokémon, was a rock and ground type, a quintessential symbol of rock-type trainers. Since this wasn't an official gym battle, and given that Flint primarily used rock and ground types, there wasn't much reason for him to hide his choices. He confidently led with Onyx. But Johan had already decided who to send out first. Let's go Dragonair. Against a rock-type trainer, Dragonair's water-type moves were a clear advantage. No matter how the match played out, he still had Jengar and Vulpix as backups. Dragonair's eyes gleamed with determination. Being chosen to lead in such a crucial battle meant Johan trusted it deeply. I won't let Johan down. I'll show him how much I've grown. Flint clenched his fists. Though his vision was nearly obscured by age, his fighting spirit burned fiercely. No matter how tough the rock may be, we'll shatter it with strength. Onyx, use Iron Tail. Thud, thud, thud. Onyx's massive form lunged forward, its rocky body grinding against the earth and leaving deep trenches in its wake. Its tail shimmered with a metallic sheen as it swung fiercely toward Dragonair. Iron Tail. Vulpix glanced at its own fluffy tail, then at Onyx's colossal one. They're both Iron Tail, but the size difference is insane. I need to train more. As the sharp wind from Onyx's strike closed in, Johan calmly issued his command. Dragon Tail. Water swirled around Dragonair's sleek, azure tail as it arced gracefully through the air. Clang! The tails collided, one thick and heavy, the other slender and fluid. Johan rested his chin on his hand, thinking aloud. Flint may not be able to beat Miyuki, but it's clear she's forced him to develop better strategies against water-type moves. Miyuki's influence on Flint was undeniable. Rock types were naturally weak to water types, but strategy and experience could nullify that. Fly up, Johan commanded. Leveraging the force of the clash, Dragonair's elegant white wing-like fins expanded, propelling it skyward. Realizing Johan's intent, Flint narrowed his eyes. Their voices rang out simultaneously. Onyx, Dragon Dance! Dragon Dance! Click! From the sidelines, Jengar whipped out its phone and snapped a photo. Holy smokes, even Onyx knows Dragon Dance? Stone Edge! Flint barked, seeing Dragonair attempting to use its aerial advantage. The ground shook violently. Roar! Onyx bellowed as its massive tail struck the ground. Jagged rocks erupted in a devastating line toward Dragonair. Crash! Crack! The Stone Edge attack launched sharp stone spires in relentless succession, glinting menacingly in the sun. So this is why Flint doesn't want to battle inside his gym, Johan thought, watching the destruction. With attacks like these, the cost of repairs would be astronomical. No wonder so many gym leaders resorted to appropriate challenges, aka going easy on challengers. Extreme speed, a white blur cut through the battlefield as Dragonair deftly wove between the stone spikes. Flint's eyes widened. He realized his mistake too late. Johan had no intention of retreating. With the combined speed of Extreme Speed and Dragon Dance, Dragonair was nimble enough to evade Onyx's attacks and flank it from behind. Though Onyx wasn't slow, Dragonair's agility gave it the upper hand in tight spaces. Thwack! Dragonair deflected Onyx's tail with another Extreme Speed maneuver, then struck with Aqua Tail, its tail brimming with spiraling water energy. Onyx, protect! At Flint's command, a green barrier materialized around Onyx, blocking Dragonair's strike. Smash! The barrier shattered on impact, but the effort bought Onyx time. Onyx, high horsepower! Though it was close range, Onyx surged forward with earth-shaking power. But Dragonair was already one step ahead. Water gun! Johan countered. A torrent of water engulfed Onyx, its 4 times weakness to water overwhelming its defenses. With its abysmal special defense, Onyx was instantly knocked out. Flint grimaced. That water gun was absurdly strong for such a basic move. You lured me in a close range by pretending to rely on physical moves, only to finish with a surprise special attack. Impressive. Flint nodded appreciatively as he recalled Onyx. As expected of the tactical master Brock always talks about. But I'm not done yet. Go Golem! Boom! The burly, boulder-like Golem hit the ground, sending tremors through the field. Golem rollout! Curling into a dense ball, Golem began rolling at high speed, kicking up dirt and debris as it sped around the battlefield. Its rapid movement made it difficult to approach, let alone land a hit. Johan frowned slightly. Dragonair, water gun! Blast! The attack left a gouge in the earth, but Golem emerged unscathed, its rolling motion dispersing the water's impact. It's creating a defensive barrier by churning up mud and rocks. Johan muttered, "This must be Flint's adaptation to Miyuki's relentless water types." Rumble rumble. Golem's rollout intensified, using the stone edge spires left behind by Onyx to launch itself into the air. If it hit Dragonair at this speed, the damage would be catastrophic. Go Tinkatuff! Johan swapped Dragonair out. The little pink Pokémon bounded forward, clutching its hefty hammer. But instead of confronting Golem head-on, it hurled its ice-coated hammer with incredible force. Wham! The impact sent Golem skidding, nearly triggering its sturdy ability. Such a heavy hammer. Flint murmured, impressed. Golem, high horsepower. Flint attempted to convert Golem's momentum into raw power, but Johan was ready. Protect. Tinkatuff's green barrier absorbed the brunt of Golem's attack. Brick break. With a swift swing, Tinkatuff slammed its hammer down, leaving Golem cracked and barely hanging on. Golem, earthquake. Play rough. As Golem stomped, fracturing the ground, Tinkatuff smashed through the debris with its hammer. The battlefield was left in ruins, with Golem lying fainted in the dirt. Chew! Tinkatuff nodded respectfully at Golem, a strong and worthy opponent. As Johan surveyed the carnage, He finally understood why Pewter Gym's difficulty was ranked only slightly above Cerulean Gym's. This level of destruction would bankrupt anyone in repairs. Flint sighed, recalling Golem. "You're as solid as a rock yourself, Johan." Meanwhile, Jengar and Vulpix were calculating. With this victory, Johan now had 7 badges. Johan had earned the gray badge. At first glance, it looked like a polished rock. Johan strongly suspected that the gray badge was just a peculiar stone Flint had picked up in the wild and smoothed into shape. No wonder Pewter Gym had the dubious honor of being known as the poorest gym in Kanto. Compared to Saffron Gym's solid gold badge, Viridian Gym's emerald, and Celadon Gym's rainbow gemstone, the gray badge was, well, worth practically nothing. Flint also gave Johan a TM for Rock Slide, as per custom. Rock Slide, a move with a 30% chance to cause the opponent to flinch, rounded generously. The Pokédex chimed in, throwing in its 2 cents. Rounded generously? Johan smirked. As if my luck could ever hit that 30%. Unless, of course, Dragonair was the one using it. Unfortunately, Dragonair couldn't learn Rock Slide, at least not until it evolved into Dragonite. For now, Johan decided to give it to Tinkatuff. It wasn't a bad choice. The materials required to teach Rock Slide were simple, just rocks, budget-friendly, and very fitting for Pewter Gym's identity. When Tinkatuff had some downtime, Johan figured it could practice Rock Slide as a hobby. Nightfall, outside Viridian Forest. Unlike large cities like Saffron, which boasted multiple Pokémon centers, smaller areas typically had just one, though exceptions were made for places like Viridian Forest. With its reputation as an adventurer's haven, the forest entrances were equipped with Pokémon centers to handle emergencies. After their battle, Johan and Flint both had Pokémon that needed tending to. Flint also temporarily abandoned his camping plans. As the familiar healing tune played in the Pokémon Center's lobby, they stepped inside. Unsurprisingly, "Miss Joy, allow me to introduce myself. I am Flint." Wham! Before Johan could even react, Flint, who had just grabbed Joy's hand, was struck squarely on the head by a club thicker than a human thigh. The assailant? A Chansey wielding a bone club nearly twice its size. Even more unsettling was its unervingly sweet smile. Lucky, Johan stood frozen, sweat forming on his brow. Did I just walk into a trap disguised as a Pokémon Center? Chansey put the club down. Nurse Joy said, glancing at Johan. He's not a bad guy. Lucky. Chansey tilted its head, then casually tossed the club aside with a loud thud. It placed its hands over its heart and flashed Johan a sweet, innocent smile. At that moment, Johan felt as if he were looking at a smaller, pink version of Tinkatuff, a deceptively cute demon. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Johan." Joy apologized, rushing out from behind the counter. Chansey mistook you for troublemakers. Johan waved her off. "It's fine." Given Flint's antics, barreling in late at night, kneeling theatrically and grabbing Joy's hand, he couldn't entirely blame Chansey for assuming the worst. Joy quickly explained that, stationed on the edge of Viridian Forest, this Pokémon Center wasn't the safest place. They often dealt with wild Pokémon causing disturbances or even suspicious trainers. "So Chansey and I learned some self-defense techniques," Joy added. Johan's eyes flicked to the counter, where a second club, this one with an exposed handle, rested ominously. Fair enough. A lone boy out in the wild needs to protect himself. "Wait, you know who I am?" Johan asked. "Oh, of course," Joy said, pulling out her phone. She showed him a photo. It was the selfie he'd taken earlier with Officer Jenny. "You know, we Joys and Jennies are pretty close," she added with a grin. "Close, huh? My apologies for the misunderstanding," Joy said, bowing alongside Chansey. "Lucky," Johan sighed. "It's no trouble." As his gaze landed on Flint, now sprawled on the floor and twitching, Johan's lips twitched. "This here is Flint, Pewter Gym's leader," he said. "Ah," Joy replied, recognition dawning on her face. "Is my reputation really bigger than his here?" Johan wondered. While Chansey tended to Johan's Pokémon, he kept a close eye on it, silently marveling at the sheer disparity between its cutesy demeanor and brutal combat prowess. Later, after their Pokémon were treated and checked, Nurse Joy handed Dragonair over for a relaxing spa session. Flint, meanwhile, remained unconscious on the floor, his twitching growing faint. While watching Chansey slap Dragonair with expert massage techniques, Johan's Pokédex lit up with a data entry. Chansey. Type. Normal. Ability. Serene Grace. Moves known. Charm, Wish, Sweet Kiss, Minimize, Rock Slide, Heal Bell, Calm Mind, Egg Bomb, Assist Power. Serene Grace and Rock Slide? Johan raised an eyebrow. He turned to Joy. Can I ask you something? Yes. Why not have Chansey fight off intruders instead of, He gestured to the club. Both Joy and Chansey blinked in confusion. Fight? Chansey. For most people, Chansey was synonymous with healing and support, not battling. Its weak offensive stats in association with Nurse Joy's only reinforced that perception. This must be what they mean by ingrained stereotypes, Johan thought, scratching his head. Want me to show you? Johan offered. Show me. Joy's eyes sparkled. Minutes later, Pokémon Center's outdoor arena. Flint stood on one side of the arena, still groggy but excited. Opposite him, Joy and Chansey faced off nervously, with Johan coaching from the sidelines. Flint, just a demonstration. Don't take it too seriously, Johan called. Understood. Flint grinned, releasing a Rhyhorn onto the field. The match began, and Flint started his introduction. Miss Joy, allow me to crash. Before Flint could finish, Chansey summoned a rock slide that pummeled Rhyhorn, leaving it flinching and unable to act. Flint. Johan smirked from the sidelines. Rock slide with serene grace. Don't underestimate it. The match continued, with Chansey using Snatch to steal Rhyhorn's stat boost from Sword's Dance, followed by Minimize to increase its evasion. While Rhyhorn flailed, missing every attack, Chansey alternated between Heal Bell, Calm Mind, and Soft Boil to maintain its stamina. Eventually, Joy, flush with excitement, was calling out, Rock Slide again. 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 Johan massaged his temples. It's always the lucky ones who think this strategy is foolproof. By the end of the demonstration, Rhyhorn was reduced to a trembling wreck, while Flint stood in stunned silence. Flint stammered. What just happened? Joy and Chansey happened, Johan quipped. For the final blow, Chansey used Assist Power, dealing a surprisingly effective hit thanks to its boosted stats. As Flint's Rhyhorn fainted, Johan couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for it. Who would have thought the most dangerous thing here wasn't Flint's recklessness, but Joy's newfound confidence? Assist Power, Base Power 20. The move's power increases based on the Pokémon stat boosts, up to a maximum of 840. With 3 uses of Minimize, Chansey's evasion rate had already skyrocketed. Combined with the Sword Dance boost it had stolen from Rhyhorn and 3 uses of Calm Mind, the sheer power of this assist power exceeded not only Nurse Joy's expectations, but also Flint's wildest imagination. Watching Joy's excitement, Johan couldn't help but wonder, have I opened Pandora's box again? Does every healer secretly have the heart of a damage dealer? Well, it didn't really matter. After all, how could adorable Nurse Joy's ever be at fault? Not every Joy could be like the Prosecutor Joy who had a Latias at her command. Cheeky Rock Slide wasn't some top-tier strategy. Its brilliance lay in its simplicity, making it perfect for Joy, who wasn't accustomed to battles. Didn't Flint look reluctant to approach her after the match? Compared to the resource-heavy Parish Song Stall team, Rock Slide Chansey was far more accessible. And if Joy paired Chansey with an Audino, one hurling poison, the other slinging Rock Slide, both constantly switching while healing and tanking hits, Joy could absolutely dominate doubles matches. Audino could even Mega Evolve. Truly filthy. Johan sighed. But hey, it's not like I'm the one using it. That evening, Johan and Flint stayed the night at the Pokémon Center near Viridian Forest. Little did Johan know, the cheeky rock slide strategy he had demonstrated left Joys across the Pokémon world tossing and turning in their sleep. And they weren't the only ones losing sleep. The wild Pokémon of Viridian Forest were also having a rough night. Kaka, their King of Terror, had arrived. Aboard a plane to Hoenn, Johan reviewed the pilot episode of Meowth and Piku. To his surprise, the production team had moved quickly. Of course, the episode wasn't ready for release yet. The editing was still rough. The early version had been sent to Johan for feedback. Even so, Johan had to admit, truly a masterclass in typecasting. Especially Jessie. The way she captured anger, despite the scene only showing her lower body, was spot on. Kaka. Jengar, munching on 2 poison fangs it had swiped, laughed uproariously. Vulpix rolled across Johan's lap, giggling uncontrollably. Tinkatuff and Dragonair were also laughing their heads off. Their reactions confirmed it. The show had a promising start. Johan sent Madori a message. He told her it was good to go, and they could begin preparations for the release. While there were a few deviations from his original script, Johan had to admit that some impromptu elements from Meowth and Piku brought unexpected brilliance to the show. After watching the episode, Johan also realized this was the Pokémon world. Not everything needed to follow his original concepts. Unique, Pokémon-specific elements could make the show even better. Achoo! Jengar suddenly sneezed. Caught a cold? Johan asked. Kaka, kaka. Jengar rubbed its nose and waved dismissively. Probably just someone thinking about me. It mused. Who could it be? Team Rocket? The electronic pet? Or Giant Jengar? Who cared? The important thing was, I'm still this popular. Jengar donned its sunglasses and laughed triumphantly. Watching Jengar's smug antics, Johan couldn't resist saying, Jengar, kaka. When I was a kid, I thought sneezes meant someone was thinking about me. But later, I realized it's just my older self. Johan sighed dramatically, his tone laced with nostalgia. Kaka. Jengar scratched its head, struggling to grasp Johan's words. But as it pondered them, the gears in its mind began to turn. And then it hit. Kaka. This is so depressing. Seeing Jengar's defeated expression, Johan chuckled. Achoo. Johan sneezed. Kaka. Ears drooping. Jengar gave him a sorrowful look. Is your future self thinking of you two? Rubbing his nose, Johan smirked. Wonder which girl is thinking about me this time. Kaka. Jengar tilted its head. Didn't you just say? But Johan interrupted with a grin. Dummy, I was talking about when I was a kid. Jengar blinked, the realization dawning. You sly dog. As it processed the ruse, Jengar let out a menacing laugh and lunged at Johan. Wait, Jengar. I was joking. No, not the drool. This is a new shirt. Rocket Base, Viridian City. Boss. Madori approached Giovanni, her expression unusual. Yes. She handed over a tablet displaying research data. After some analysis, the researchers discovered. Madori took a deep breath before continuing. They believe Johan's conversations with Mewtwo could be compiled into data capable of evolving Porygon. Giovanni raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Taking the tablet, he skimmed through the findings. The comparison of Porygon and Porygon 2's capabilities was striking. Most notably, Porygon 2 exhibited signs of self-awareness, independent learning, and improvement, giving an AI the ability to think for itself. Madori nodded stiffly. To be honest, she found it hard to believe at first, but the data didn't lie. Previously, Porygon had been regarded as a soulless machine, following predetermined instructions. But now, Porygon 2 was showing signs of independent thought, turning a soulless machine into something with feelings. So this is the power of a Pokémon psychologist, Giovanni mused, setting the tablet aside. Madori pursed her lips. I believe it's not just any Pokémon psychologist. Only Johan could achieve this. Giovanni nodded in agreement. Is the name Porygon 2 his creation? Yes. And the researchers suspect Johan might be able to evolve Porygon 2 further. Madori hesitated before nodding again. Giovanni chuckled. Do you think Johan is aware of this? Probably not. Then let's keep it that way. Giovanni opened a drawer and retrieved a customized USB drive. Send this to him as a token of appreciation. What is it? Madori asked, curious. Giovanni smirked. Secrets of the Earth. Sunday. Rustboro City, Hoenn. The rain from the previous night had cleared. Johan stood by the window of his cafe, letting the crisp morning air fill the room. The faint scent of rain mixed with greenery, refreshing his senses. Sunlight streamed in, warming the bed where Vulpix stretched luxuriously before curling back up, licking its paws. Noticing Johan's gaze, Vulpix smiled sweetly, its six tails swaying as its ears twitched. "Oh, degree." It yawned, clearly still sleepy. Johan chuckled. Sometimes he wondered, was Vulpix more feline or canine? "Vulpix, let me teach you a morning stretch," Johan said suddenly. "Oh." The little fox tilted its head. Johan folded his blanket neatly and placed Vulpix on top. "Follow my lead. Head up." "Oh." Vulpix raised its head, stiffening its limbs. "Head down." "Oh." It flopped onto the blanket, looking exhausted. "Already tired?" Johan laughed, scooping it up and pressing his face into its soft belly. "Oh, woo, oh, woo." Who needed stretches when cuddling was so much better? Originally, Johan had planned to head straight to Kalos, where Professor Cosmo awaited his assistance. However, a message from Professor Martin reminded him that term finals were approaching and teachers needed to prepare. Though Johan felt his presence at the meeting wasn't crucial, he figured he'd already shirked his duties enough lately. It was only fair to attend before heading to Kalos. Chew. On the balcony, Tinkatuff let out a call as a familiar delibird approached. It carried a package, undoubtedly another delivery from Giovanni. "Kaka." From the ceiling, Jengar yawned, accidentally falling through the floorboards and landing on the bed. By the time Johan returned, Jengar had already plugged in a USB drive, wearing an unusually serious expression. "What's in it?" Johan asked, curious. The screen displayed the words, "Secrets of the Earth." Johan. Sure, Giovanni's Secrets of the Earth was a renowned move. But I don't even have a ground-type Pokemon. Jengar didn't even know a single ground-type move. What was it so serious about? Secrets of the Earth could easily be called Giovanni's magnum opus. It was said that Giovanni earned the title, "As long as I stand upon the Earth, I shall not be defeated," thus gaining the moniker Giovanni of the Earth. In the Pokemon Adventures manga, the only time Giovanni lost to Red was due to a cheap shot involving insulated gloves and a decisive finishing move. Later, when Green acquired Giovanni's Secrets of the Earth, he built a formidable team in under a year. This demonstrated that Secrets of the Earth wasn't just about training ground-type Pokemon or teaching ground-type moves. It contained Giovanni's lifetime of experience in raising Pokemon. His unparalleled strength, combined with the magnanimity to share his wisdom with others, was what gave Giovanni the aura of a true master. No wonder Jengar was so engrossed in it. Even it seemed to absorb some strategies and methods from the book. Strictly speaking, without its levitate ability, Jengar could also be considered a Pokemon standing upon the earth. However, some methods in the book were a little too destructive. Not for the Pokemon, but for Johan's house. Seeing Jengar's serious expression, Johan massaged his temples and sighed. All right. That's enough for now. I still have a meeting at school today. I'll be late if we don't leave soon." Kaka. Jengar reluctantly ejected the USB drive and swallowed it into its stomach. At the school, the end-of-term faculty meeting was as important as ever. For Johan, though, participation was more symbolic than anything else. Originally, he'd planned to attend the meeting today and fly to Kalos tomorrow. To avoid arriving unexpectedly, he decided to call Professor Sycamore ahead of time. Surprisingly, Sycamore didn't answer. Instead, a young voice picked up the phone. "Sorry, Mr. Johan. Professor Sycamore is out on an errand right now." The voice sounded a bit youthful, but clear and articulate. Probably one of Sycamore's assistants. "I see," Johan replied, slightly surprised but relieved. "Good thing I didn't just fly straight to Kalos. Would have been awkward to find no one there." It wasn't unusual for professors to be out in the field, so Johan wasn't too concerned. "Well then, when Professor Sycamore returns, could you have him give me a call?" "Thanks." "Of course. That's no problem at all. By the way, who am I speaking with?" "Alan." "Mr. Johan, my name's Alan. I'm Professor Sycamore's assistant." "Alan?" The name sparked an image in Johan's mind. A stoic, cool-looking teenager. Alan, the water-absorbed Charizard trainer. Ash's inability to win the Kalos League was a sore spot for many Pokémon fans. And his greatest rival? Alan. Although Ash later claimed victory in Alola, the league wasn't exactly fully developed yet, making the victory feel somewhat provincial. Still, it couldn't be denied that water-absorbed Charizard, memes aside, Alan was incredibly strong. He had single-handedly defeated 10 opponents and had the backing of Fire-type Elite 4-member Malva. But right now, Alan was just a research assistant for Professor Sycamore, far from the powerhouse he'd become. All right, Alan. Thanks again. After hanging up, Johan paused. Kaka. Jengar tilted its head, sensing Johan's hesitation. Well, I guess I'm not going to Kalos anytime soon. That means I'm free for now. At that moment, the sky darkened and light rain began to fall. Johan hurried to take shelter under the gatehouse. Does this mean I'm going to have to write exam papers for the kids? The term exams were still a ways off, and writing tests this early would only give the students nightmares. Failing too many students wouldn't look good either. Guess I'll save that for the last minute, like always. Watching the rain grow heavier, Johan smiled. This weather's perfect for staying indoors. However, they were low on groceries at home. Johan released his Pokémon, lining them up in a neat row, with Jengar at the lead. Holding up his phone, he said, "You have 3 seconds to call out what you want to eat." Kaka. Fried pork cutlet. Uwu. Vanilla ice cream. Chew. Mapo tofu. Dry. Sashimi. Excellent. Johan nodded approvingly. Then tonight, we'll have dumplings. The Pokémon. You called us out here just to ignore us? Kaka. Get him. Jengar growled menacingly, rallying the others. Dragonair prepared to bind him. Jengar readied paralysis, and Vulpix froze the right flank with Ice Beam. Thud. Tinkatuff set its hammer on the ground with a heavy clang, smiling mischievously as it dragged the hammer toward Johan step by step. Kalos, Lumio City. In a quiet cafe, 2 men sat across from each other. The red-haired man exuded an aura of authority. Lysandra, leader of Team Flare and representative of the Lysandra Labs. Opposite him was a scruffy man in his 30s, wearing a dark blue shirt, Professor Sycamore. Though they belonged to different research organizations, the two were close friends. Any progress lately? Lysandra asked, passing Sycamore a cup of coffee. Sycamore smiled. Same as always. Lysandra wasn't surprised. Instead, he slid a small slip of paper across the table. What's this? A ruin. You'll find what you're looking for there. Sycamore hesitated. He didn't need to ask. Lysandra clearly meant megastones and keystones. However, instead of taking the paper immediately, Sycamore stirred his coffee thoughtfully. Lysandra. Sycamore studied Lysandra's eyes for a long moment before sighing, his tone filled with quiet disappointment. Sometimes, I feel like you've changed, become someone I don't recognize. But other times, I feel like you're still the same person you used to be. Lysandra chuckled. I haven't changed. The smile faded from his face as he turned to look out the window, staring at the bustling streets of Lumio City. What's changed is this world. Or rather, what needs to change is this world. For a fleeting moment, his face twisted into an expression of rage and madness. Sycamore caught it, his heart sinking, but he quickly regained his composure. Taking the slip of paper, he stood up. Why get back? I'll introduce you to a friend. A friend? Lysandra raised an eyebrow. Sycamore's circle of friends was notoriously small. Smiling cryptically, Sycamore left the cafe. Looking up at the overcast sky, he sighed. I need to find him a good psychologist. Lysandra's mindset is growing increasingly extreme. Hopefully, Johan can help him. Hoenn, Rustboro City. Cafe, 2nd floor. Condensation misted the windows as warm air filled the room. Dragonair used its tail to draw crooked doodles on the foggy glass, smiling contentedly. Rubbing his face, Johan walked over. The fat blob is Jengar. The 6 tails are Vulpix. The one with the hammer is Tinkatuff. And the one flying is you. Turning to Dragonair, he deadpanned. So tell me, what's this lump on the ground? Try a guess. Johan rolled his eyes. Guess whether I'll guess or not. Gathering his Pokémon around the table, he sighed. Can you guys stop taking things so seriously? I was just teasing you. The Pokémon were now behaving, though Johan knew they had him wrapped around their little paws. All right, I'll teach you how to knead dough and roll dumpling wrappers. Making dumplings was a family affair. Besides, this way he could keep an eye on Gengar. He didn't want it sneaking into the kitchen while he was distracted. Gengar excelled at kneading dough, thanks to its ball-rolling expertise. Vulpix's 6 tails made it the most efficient wrapper of all. As for Tinkatuff, its raw strength made it perfect for chopping the filling. Johan handed it 2 plastic knives and assigned it the new task of dicing vegetables. Dragonair, lacking hands, had its tail repurposed as a rolling pin. Make only what we can eat, Johan said as he worked. He glanced over to see Gengar with a mountain of dumpling wrappers piled next to it. Kaka, hot dumplings, golden fried pork cutlets, vanilla ice cream, spicy mapo tofu, and fresh sashimi soon filled the table. Cheers! Johan clinked his soda can with his Pokemon's drinks, moo milk, fruit juice, and sodas of their choice. Let's eat. The table descended into chaos. Gengar, don't dump the entire plate into your mouth. And no using double team. Kaka, Sigma, lol. As laughter echoed through the warm, light-filled room, the camera slowly pulled away. Outside, the rain continued to fall softly against the windows. Ooh, who made this ugly dumpling? Must be Gengar. Kaka, it's clearly yours. Was it Tinkatuff? True, this masterpiece is mine. Then it's Dragonair. Me? Oh, who cares? It's delicious. I was just trying to make a Vulpix, but it fell apart halfway through. More laughter rang out, spreading warmth into the rainy night. The rain that had fallen throughout the night stopped the next morning, but the temperature had dropped significantly. For Johan, though, a slight chill like this was nothing. Between Gengar's frequent licks, which seemed to make him immune to paralysis, and his natural resilience to cold, Johan believed his resistance to cold weather was his true superpower. That said, given winter's approach, Johan still threw on a hoodie before dragging his Pokémon out of bed. Gengar, lead the team. Brush your teeth. Let's go. Kaka. Gengar gurgled and spit out its mouthwash, flashing its sparkling white teeth in the mirror. With a thumbs up to itself, it admired the glint of its teeth. Kaka. During breakfast, if there's nothing else today, we'll focus on training. Moves like Thunder and Overheat could use a little more fine-tuning. The Pokémon naturally had no objections. After all, the final and toughest gym in Kanto awaited them. They had to win. All of Johan's Pokémon were full of energy and determination. But since the Weather Institute isn't fixed yet, let's head to the beach today, Johan declared. The Pokémon all perked up at the mention of the beach. Truth be told, despite spending so much time in Rustboro City, Johan had rarely visited the local shores. However, plans were made to be broken. Just as Johan packed everything for the day, lunchboxes, picnic blankets, fruit juice, and moo milk, a little visitor appeared at the cafe. It was an EV, and not just any EV. It was a slightly chubby EV. EV. The EV curiously padded around the cafe, stepping on the soft cushions before hopping onto the counter. It pawed at the glass jars and utensils, producing a series of crisp, clinking sounds. The noise caught Gengar's attention. Poking its head through the ceiling like a phantom, Gengar peered down and froze. Kaka. When it saw the chubby EV on the counter, it hesitated. EV. Omega. The EV, completely unbothered, waved cheerfully at Gengar. Gengar scratched its head, a faint sense of familiarity tugging at it. At that moment, Johan also walked downstairs to check the commotion. When he spotted the EV licking its paws atop the counter, his heart skipped a beat. That feeling, EV. Before Johan could speak, the EV took 2 bounding steps and leapt straight into his arms. Feeling its soft weight, Johan smiled wryly. You've gotten chubbier, haven't you, Mew? EV. The chubby EV looked surprised that Johan had recognized it, but it soon giggled, covering its mouth. A flash of white light surrounded it as its form shimmered and transformed back into its true self, Mew. Mew. Sure enough, it was Mew. Thanks to his aura powers, Johan could sense the familiar energy radiating from it. Mew's ability to transform wasn't limited to appearances. Even its aura signature could change. If not for the fact that Johan's aura had awakened through Mew's help, he might not have recognized it. However, Johan raised an eyebrow as he stared at the slightly plumper Mew. Have I really turned Mew into a house cat? A tender smile crossed Johan's face. Holding the rounder, fluffier Mew, he couldn't resist pressing his face into its soft belly. The plush little Mew was even more huggable now. Despite its smooth appearance, Mew was covered in a fine layer of fur, making it incredibly satisfying to pet. Mew Mew. Blushing slightly, Mew squirmed in Johan's arms before giving up and settling down. Woo. Vulpix appeared at the top of the stairs, stunned by the scene. Mew. Woo. Soon, Mew was tumbling and playing with Vulpix, Tinkatuff, and Dragonair. Meanwhile, Jengar was busy downloading movies and games from Mew on her phone, handling the process with the skill of a tech professional. Mew had come here not only because it missed Johan, Jengar, and the others, but also because it had run out of games to play and shows to watch. After all, the World Tree didn't have Wi-Fi. Feeling Vulpix's occasional jealous glances, Johan rubbed his temples. Caught red-handed cuddling Mew. Ahem. Johan cleared his throat. Jengar, download this episode from Mewtwo. He handed Jengar his phone, which contained the unreleased first episode of Meowth and Piku. Kaka. Jengar nodded confidently. It'll take a while to download, so let's go to the beach while we wait, Johan suggested. Maybe the little ones can even learn a trick or two from you. That'll save me some money. Mew. Mew's eyes lit up with excitement as it nodded eagerly. Woo. Vulpix huffed, turning its head slightly. Johan chuckled, stepping forward to scoop up the sulking Vulpix and ruffle its fur affectionately. Come on, Vulpix. Vulpix squirmed briefly before relenting, its fur now a tangled mess. But Mew, you'll have to change forms. While most people wouldn't recognize Mew, Johan didn't want to risk unnecessary trouble. Mew. Mew playfully winked but didn't transform. Instead, its body became transparent. A moment later, Johan felt a soft, warm weight settle onto his shoulder. Rustboro Beach. The morning sunlight reflected off the sea's surface, casting rippling waves of light. A gentle breeze carried the faint scent of salt water, and wind gulls soared back and forth in search of breakfast. Compared to Vermilion City's bustling shores, Rustboro Beach was quieter, especially as winter approached. There were still some visitors, however, along with food carts and small stands. Johan and his Pokémon strolled around, buying snacks before settling on a quiet stretch of beach. Mew, now visible again, floated cheerfully nearby. After laying out the picnic blanket and setting down snacks and toys, Johan turned to Jengar. Kaka. Jengar emerged from the shadows, already wearing swim goggles and a swimsuit it had somehow procured, ready to dive in. Johan pulled its mouth open and started fishing around inside. Sharpedo's teeth, Gyarados scales, Golbat fangs, Weedle's sill. Just how much stuff have you been hoarding? Kaka. Listen, let me explain. Johan rolled his eyes. He knew Jengar's collection habits all too well. Where's my beach umbrella and chair? Kaka. Jengar obediently rummaged through its mouth, pulling out a sun umbrella and reclining chair. It even set them up for Johan with a grin. Don't bother the Pokemon in the water too much, all right, Johan said as he settled comfortably into the chair. Kaka. Of course. As long as they don't provoke me first, I won't touch their stuff. With Johan's permission, Jengar cackled gleefully and charged into the waves. Nearby, Vulpix and Mew built sandcastles while Tinkatuff and Dragonair surfed the waves together. The gentle warmth of the sun lulled Johan into a peaceful state. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a faint black dot far off on the horizon. It hovered in place, circling back and forth but never coming closer. Johan squinted but ultimately shrugged it off, deciding it wasn't worth worrying about. Hoenn, Dufour Town. On the vast ocean, massive waves crashed like rolling mountains. Atop one such wave, due for gym leader Brawley expertly rode his surfboard, grinning with exhilaration. Beside him, B, her tanned skin glowing with health, matched his moves with ease, riding the surf like a pro. "Do you feel it, B?" Brawley shouted, clenching his fist. "Feel what? Look at my biceps, my pecs, my back muscles. Muscles never betray you. The effort you put in comes back to you tenfold, just like raising a Pokémon." "Yes, sir," B replied firmly, though her thoughts drifted to something else entirely. "It's been so long since I had cream cake." Despite the challenge, B had quickly mastered Brawley's surfing techniques, impressing him with her talent. For her, though, controlling the waves was no different from kneading dough, a skill she had honed long ago. "Did Johan send me here to prove the results of my training?" As the waves calmed, the pair paddled back to shore. Just as they prepared for more training, BEA's phone rang. When she saw the caller ID, her brow furrowed slightly, but she still answered. A cheerful, familiar voice rang through the speaker. "Ha. B, I heard you're training in Hoenn." "You're in Hoenn too?" "Yup. So, I think I'm lost." The sun shone brightly, and the weather was perfect. Johan lounged leisurely on a beach chair. He sipped on a glass of freshly made sherry berry juice, chilled with ice cubes that Vulpix had just crafted. In one hand, he held his phone, browsing through the notes Jengar had transferred about the secrets of the Earth. So that's how it works. As Johan continued reading, he found that his initial impressions were correct. Beyond detailing the strategies for commanding, battling, and raising ground-type Pokémon, the guide contained invaluable wisdom. It was a treasure trove of Giovanni's accumulated experience in Pokémon training. Of course, it also included insights into destructive moves like Earthquake and High Horsepower. While not everything could be directly replicated, there was plenty to adapt and learn from. The only downside? Giovanni's training methods were extremely costly. Without significant financial resources, it would be nearly impossible to fully implement the guide's techniques. Still, even a surface-level application would likely elevate an average trainer to an elite level. As Johan scrolled, his phone suddenly rang. It was B. Upon answering, her voice came through, tinged with a bit of embarrassment. "Johan-sensei, have you returned to Hoenn?" "Yeah, I'm back. I'm in Rustboro right now," Johan replied, puzzled. "Why? What's up?" "I have a friend. I guess you could call him a friend. He's arrived in Hoenn, or at least he should have by now." Her hesitant tone made Johan even more confused. "A friend, huh? And what does she mean by should have arrived?" "Anyway," B continued, "he's lost. I was hoping you could help find him." "Lost? Who still gets lost in this day and age? Don't they have GPS?" "Wait a second." Johan suddenly thought of someone. His expression grew strange. "Your friend wouldn't happen to be Leon, would he?" "Sensei, you know him?" Johan sighed. "Know him? Oh, I know him all too well. The so-called strongest champion, famously known as the king of ads, master of getting lost, and champion of posing." Even setting aside Johan's prior knowledge, Leon was a household name in the Pokémon world, constantly appearing in commercials and news reports. "So Leon is in Hoenn?" "Yes. He said he's here to visit your former headmaster on behalf of his mentor." That made sense. The former headmaster of Johan's school was a close friend of Mustard, Leon's mentor. But, B added, "I don't know exactly where he is now. He said he was over the ocean and he got lost." Over the ocean? Johan's eyes narrowed. He turned to gaze at the distant sea, where he had earlier noticed a small black dot aimlessly circling. "Sensei, do you think you could ask Officer Jenny to help search for him?" Asking Officer Jenny to find a champion? Wait, Leon wasn't technically a champion yet. "That won't be necessary," Johan replied. "I think I've already found him." Let me confirm. I'll call you back." After hanging up, Johan called out to Jengar, who was playing in the water. "Kaka." Johan pointed toward the horizon. "Is that a person over there?" Jengar shaded its eyes with a hand, squinting into the distance. While it didn't spot anything, it took Johan's word for it and began floating toward the indicated direction. Before long, "Kaka." Jengar zipped back like a mischievous gremlin, cackling wildly. Its tongue lolled out, and it darted across the water like a speeding jet ski. Chasing after it was an orange Charizard, its wings flapping furiously but unable to close the distance. Riding on Charizard's back was a young man with purple hair, a flowing cape, and stubble on both cheeks. It was unmistakably Leon. Though Leon looked like his usual self, both he and Charizard were clearly in distress. Kaka. Jengar reached Johan and handed him a peculiar-looking wristband. Johan sighed, recognizing it instantly. Of course, it's the Dynamax band. The device allowed Pokémon to undergo Dynamax transformations, essentially growing giant-sized during battles. No wonder Leon and Charizard were in such a rush. Jengar, Johan groaned, rubbing his temples. You really do know how to find the good stuff. When Charizard landed on the beach, kicking up sand, Leon hopped off its back. As he took a deep breath of relief, Johan held out the Dynamax band. Here, I assume this belongs to you. Leon blinked before hurriedly accepting the band. Thanks, Jengar, he said with a sheepish smile. Kaka. Jengar waved nonchalantly and explained that Leon had intentionally handed it over as a breadcrumb trail. Johan raised an eyebrow. He really trusted Jengar with something so important? I didn't expect it to belong to your Jengar, Leon said, his tone warm. Johan wasn't surprised that Leon recognized him. Leon, what brings you to Hoenn? Well, I got a little lost, Leon admitted, scratching his head. A little? Leon revealed that he had left Johto 3 days ago. Instead of flying straight to Hoenn, he had somehow spent 2 days circling aimlessly over the ocean. 3 days. Johan's jaw nearly dropped. Johto wasn't that far from Hoenn. With Charizard's speed, the trip should have taken a few hours at most. But Leon had managed to get lost for 3 whole days, and he'd flown west instead of east, landing on the farthest western point of Hoenn. Classic Leon, Johan thought. The king of getting lost. Aha, I'm not great with navigation, Leon admitted with a laugh, brushing it off as normal. Charizard can't navigate either, Johan asked skeptically. Roar. Charizard snorted, puffing smoke from its nostrils, its expression betraying a mix of pride and embarrassment. When it was younger, it could navigate just fine, Leon explained. But now, well, not anymore. Johan facepalmed. So navigation skills are contagious? He glanced at his own Pokémon. My team hasn't picked up anything weird from me, have they? Hungry? Johan asked. At the mention of food, Leon and Charizard perked up immediately. Very. And Charizard says this is the best poke block it's ever had, Leon declared as they devoured several portions. Johan watched them eat, silently noting the various sponsorship logos on Leon's cape. Even the future champion has to hustle for ad money. Huh? Want me to take you to the academy? Johan offered once Leon had finished eating. Really? Thanks, Johan-sensei. Leon replied, his gratitude genuine. Johan nodded but added, but first, why don't we battle? Leon's eyes lit up at the challenge, his trademark enthusiasm kicking in. Of course. Leon struck a dramatic pose, pointing toward the sky with his cape billowing behind him. I challenge you, Johan-sensei. As the self-proclaimed strongest trainer in Galar, Leon's goal was to challenge trainers worldwide, learning from each battle to strengthen Galar as a region. Johan, however, wasn't keen on the idea of fighting Leon directly. His gaze shifted subtly to the Pokémon nearby. Mew, who was perched invisibly on his shoulder, suddenly had a bad feeling. Mew, it blinked innocently, but Johan's smirk told it everything it needed to know. Leon, you might have bitten off more than you could chew today. Leon maintained his signature pose, as though surrounded by 100 cameras. This wasn't just a habit, but a product of his upbringing in Galar, where every battle was treated like a grand performance. In Galar, the region's official matches, whether gym battles or major tournaments, were massive spectacles held in enormous stadiums, a necessity due to the Dynamax phenomenon. Ordinary gyms couldn't handle the destructive force of Dynamax battles, often crumbling under the strain. This showmanship-driven culture significantly boosted Galar's economy, making it an essential part of the region's identity. As Galar's future champion, Leon carried the responsibility of introducing Galar's unique culture to the world. Years of promotion by Macrocosmos and the Galar League had made his over-the-top gestures a natural reflex. While Leon struck his dramatic pose, Johan, standing opposite, used his aura powers to communicate with Mew, who had disguised itself as Eevee. "Mew, I need a favor." "Meow. Help me fight this guy." Despite being a mythical Pokémon, Mew wasn't naturally inclined toward combat. It could fight, but it just didn't enjoy doing so. As expected, Mew immediately shook its head. "Meow." Johan chuckled, understanding its reluctance. "Okay, how about this? I'll buy you 2 new toys afterward." "Meow." Mew's eyes lit up at the mention of toys. Still, it pouted for a moment before raising a tiny paw to indicate 4 toys instead of 2. Leon had no idea that his earlier ravenous eating had painted him as pitiful in Mew's eyes, warranting this negotiation. "Deal," Johan agreed without hesitation. "Meow." Mew swayed its tail happily. "Just disguise yourself again," Johan reminded. "No need to attract unnecessary attention." Mew nodded, understanding the potential dangers. Despite its power, it was still a target for those who coveted rare Pokémon. Team Rocket and Pokémon Hunters, to name a few. It wasn't that Johan distrusted Leon, but Macrocosmos chairman Rose was a different story. Everyone knew that Leon owed much of his success to Rose's support. With the deal struck, Mew transformed back into Eevee. Meanwhile, Leon was still holding his pose, his muscles visibly straining. Only when Johan finally spoke did he relax. "All right." Leon exhaled, his tension easing. "Then let the battle begin." He tossed a Pokeball high into the air. From the burst of red light emerged a towering Haxorus, its olive-green armor gleaming in the sunlight. Its crimson blades and muscular limbs exuded raw power. As a dragon-type Pokémon, Haxorus radiated an intimidating aura, its crimson eyes focused and determined. Johan was momentarily surprised. Leon had chosen Haxorus instead of his usual Galarian starters like Cinderace, Inteleon, or Rillaboom. Perhaps Leon intended this as more of a sparring session than a serious match. But it didn't matter. Mew was ready to dominate. "Go, Eevee," Johan announced. A chubby little Eevee hopped out from behind Johan, landing on the battlefield with an adorable chirp. "Booey." Leon's serious expression didn't falter, even as Johan sent out an Eevee. As a seasoned trainer, he knew better than to underestimate his opponent, no matter how cute their Pokémon seemed. "Haxorus, use Rock Slide." "Roar." Haxorus roared and slammed its tail into the ground, sending a barrage of jagged rocks hurtling toward Eevee. Johan smiled. "Eevee, Misty Terrain." "Booey." A soft pink mist spread across the battlefield, enveloping the entire area in seconds. The incoming rocks collided with the mist and crumbled harmlessly. Misty Terrain reduces the damage of Dragon-type moves by half and prevents status effects. Leon blinked in confusion. Since when can Eevee learn Misty Terrain? Haxorus, too, seemed momentarily disoriented as the mist dulled its focus. "Dodge it," Johan commanded. Eevee deftly leaped from rock to rock, avoiding Haxorus' attack with graceful precision. "Haxorus, close combat." Leon quickly shifted strategies. In the Misty Terrain, Dragon-type moves were weakened, so a Fighting-type move was the obvious choice. "Mew, Magic Shine." "Booey." The Eevee emitted a dazzling burst of rainbow light, blinding Haxorus and halting its advance. The searing brilliance left Haxorus roaring in pain, its defenses crumbling under the relentless assault. "Enough," Johan said, raising a hand. The battle had lasted only moments, but it was clear that Haxorus was outmatched. Leon withdrew his Pokémon, nodding solemnly. "We lost." Even with the type advantage, the Eevee's sheer power was overwhelming. Leon's mind raced as he analyzed the fight. This Eevee's strength rivals that of an Elite Four Pokémon. Eevee chirped cheerfully and hopped back to Johan, tail wagging happily. Its reward came in the form of a delicious Pokeblock, which it accepted with gusto before scampering off to play with Vulpix and the others. Leon was quiet for a moment before stepping forward and extending his hand. Johan Sensei, thank you for the battle. Next time, I hope we can have a full 6-on-6 match. Johan chuckled and shook his hand. I only have 4 Pokemon right now. Leon blinked in surprise, glancing at the Pokemon gathered around Johan. Including the EV, there were 5. Noticing Leon's confusion, Johan smiled and explained, that EV isn't mine. It's a friend, not yours. Leon's eyes widened. Even without being officially captured, this EV had fought with such precision and trust, it was hard to believe it wasn't Johan's Pokemon. Leon's admiration deepened. Johan Sensei is truly incredible. Not only is he a brilliant tactician, but even wild Pokemon trust him implicitly. Johan didn't bother correcting Leon's assumption. Explaining that Eevee was actually a mythical Pokemon in disguise would probably sound ridiculous anyway. As Leon departed, Johan made a mental note. If Leon ever challenges me again, I'll just let Steven handle him. A smile tugged at his lips. You want to fight me? Beat my student first.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500-plus novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.